Hey, Josh. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. How are you doing today?
Hanging in there, doing really well. How's everybody in your family?
Thank you for asking. Lisa is well. The kids are well. My daughter is on the kitchen table doing homework. My son is in tablet time. So we're good. We're healthy. What about you?
We are all well. The My office is in the level above the sofa annex of the Congressional Research Service. My husband is working from home, and so we are establishing good rules. And we had a lovely experience where I was asked if I wished to have company for lunch. So we actually had a lunch hour. We never get lunch together, so that was really kind of cool. Um,
Nice,
well,
nice. Hey,
I love these times because people who, like yourself, are famous broadcasters are from your home studios, seeing without our hair and makeup people and kids and cats and dogs and life running around behind us, and it's all very, 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 very real.
well, I do so many video conferences every day, either with clients or webinars or whatever. And people ask me, and they go, "Are you dressed like this every day?" And I go, "Yeah, you act the way you look." And so, yeah, I may be in the home office, but I'm still dressed as if I'm going out.
We're not going to talk about who's wearing pants. We're just not.
I've got pants.
No,
I've got pants. I'm good.
Oh, wonderful. So it's at the top of the hour. So you are here. Welcome. I'm Judy Bratt, CEO of Summit Insight, and I'm delighted that you're here for the kickoff of our live stream. Meg Kearns is our social media lead. Meg, say hi. Meg said she's going to pop back off camera in a minute, but Meg, say hello. Um, and That's okay. And Josh Frank is here from St. Louis, Missouri, joining us for our first half hour. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to have some fun. And I'm going to invite everyone here to be really active on the chat. And so I've got a couple of promises I want to make to you as we go along. And we're going to get started right away. And so everybody find the chat. I'd love to know, where are you here from? Just drop a note in the chat. Let us know where you are right now. Jenny, where are you? You're normally in Florida. Meg's in Loudoun County. Sean's in Cary, Illinois. Hi, Sean. Where else are you here from? And Reston, Virginia. Hi, Kendra. Good to see you. Columbus, Ohio. Atlanta, you just moved from Tampa. Hey, great, Jenny. Good to see you. I hope the move went well. Excellent. So we are going to have a really active chat here. Hello, Carlos from Martinsburg, West Virginia. Gino from Leesburg. Hiya. Wonderful. This is a really fun part. So here's part of what all we're doing. I'm always impressed by all the places that people come in from. So we are celebrating a live stream launch. This is also 3 hours of Ask Me Anything and 6 segments of Be Nice to My Guests and Be Focused and Be Nice to Them. And so our topic for the first half hour, we're basing all of our content today on the contents of Government Contracts Made Easier, the second edition of my book, and it's launching. I am going to invite everybody, if you're on the call, buy the book. Meg is going to drop the book into the chat. You can get the book for 50% off list price for today only. It's my gift to you. And we're going to make this an Amazon #1 bestseller, about which more in a moment. So be active on the chat, live Ask Me Anything. And I want to encourage you to remember that if you're in the federal market, that every single time that somebody's in touch with you, every single experience somebody has with you, tells them a little bit about who you are and what they can expect when they are with you. And so I want to give you some of the experience, the opportunity to think about the kind of experience that you have with them by creating an experience with you here today. So I want to actually start with a question for you that I started asking Josh. Pop one word in the chat right now. How are you feeling with current events, your family, what's going on? Just one word check-in with you and for you and yours. How are you doing? Just drop a word in the chat. We're going to have a really active chat here for a minute. So drop some in the chat here while Safe, says Jenny. Glad to hear it. What else? One word's in the chat. Pumped. Thank you, Meg. How else are you doing? Cautious. Yeah. You got to be. Wash those hands. Anybody else? Couple of words in the chat. Just how are you doing? Thanks. Trying to figure out how to adapt and what the new operations are. Yeah, thanks, John. Exactly right. Doing the best we can. Yeah, exactly so. Exactly so. Keep active in that chat. And it's my pleasure right now to introduce my guest and to talk a little bit about the book. The biggest difference, I will tell you, this is the second edition of Government Contracts Made Easier. And here's the biggest difference. This is the first edition. In the first edition, I'm on the cover. In the second edition, you're on the cover. And that really sums up the biggest shift in what I've learned in the 9 years since I wrote the first book. And our topic for the first half hour is strategy. So now is the meaty time. Drop in the chat and Meg's going to relay those to me. What's your top question you've got on your mind related to strategy in the federal market, whether you are thinking about getting into the federal market or you're trying to figure out what the obstacles are that you need to get past to get to the next level? Because we're going to answer those questions as we go along. My guest for this first segment is Josh Frank, who's managing partner at RSM Federal in St. Louis, Missouri. He is author of not one, not two, but 3 books on government contracting. So go pick up his books when you go and pick up mine. You know that part in Amazon where it says people who bought this book also bought? I've got a couple of reasons why you'd want to do that. Josh is an outdoor enthusiast and also a scout leader for both boys and girls. I haven't been a Boy Scout leader. I was a Girl Guide leader in Canada, so that we have both of those things in common. And Josh is a former military intelligence officer with degrees in English, management information systems, and an MBA. You're an Army veteran, right, Josh?
Absolutely. I'm definitely Army.
All right, we got that right now. And strategy brings me to the concept of competimates, because if you were to look at, and I'm going to show it to you right now, if you were to look us up both online, you would think that Josh and I are competitors. Mm-hmm. And you know what? You could look at life that way. The RSM Federal is his company. And I want to introduce the concept of competimates, because my promise to you in each half hour is that I'm able to give you, you're able to find at least one aha, one thing that makes a difference for you. And at the end of the half hour, be advised, I'm going to ask you for your aha to drop it in the chat. So write it down. So the concept of competimates is this, opportunity is like dough. Add warmth, it rises, and there's more for everybody. What would happen if you thought of opportunity like dough instead of like pie? There's only so much. Wanted to keep it to myself. So Josh and I got to be friends talking about where we were both going, getting to know one another at one of the conferences where we were both speaking. We both offer services and advice for government contractors. We've both been in this business for over 30 years, and we help each other out. Josh actually invited me to contribute a chapter to the, where is it? Just at the Game Changers book. My chapter starts on page 183, and he invited me to put together a chapter when he was a couple of weeks from publication. And I helped him with his launch, and he helped me with mine. And this launch today is living proof that you can give away all your tools to your competitors, and they're never going to know how to use them as well as you do. So Josh, thank you for the amazing contributions that you've made in helping us get our act together, reach more people. And so you and I have both been really scrambling over the last few weeks to share as much as we could about tactics, information, strategies that government contractors need to be keeping in mind right now in these unusual times. What are you seeing as the biggest strategy shifts that government contractors who are already in the market need to be thinking about right now?
Well, probably the greatest shift. It's a combination. It's a bridging of the legislative and the acquisition pieces. and obviously we're talking pandemic, if we're talking the last couple of weeks, COVID-19. And so, when the president, excuse me, when the president declared his national emergency declaration, it triggered a whole bunch of things. It triggered the FAR, 18.2 for the, emergency acquisition flexibilities. It triggered the national, interest action, DPA. But what a lot of people don't realize, especially all right, so this is for the smaller companies, okay, that are listening right now. As soon as the president declared that, set aside's pretty much gone out the window because micro purchase goes up.
When you say micro purchase goes up, has the micro purchase threshold been officially raised to a specific level?
Yes.
What's it gone up to now?
Yeah, it's officially raised from 10,000 to 100,000. And the simplified acquisition threshold has been increased from 250K to 750K. Those are CONUS numbers.
Right. So those are the standard emergency disaster response uplifts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so, but what a lot, there's a reason why, like a lot of 8A companies from a strategic perspective are going, oh my gosh, the SBA is offering to suspend my 8A certification for up to a year. And the reason why that's happening, it's not 18.2, it's not the NIA, it's not the DPA. As soon as the president invokes the Stafford Act, as soon as that happens, the government is allowed to do a whole bunch of sole source, minimizing number of companies that can compete. Competition could simply be getting on the phone and going, hey, what's your price? Good, it's yours. So the number one thing, you're either mission critical, mission essential, or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're going to have some challenges in the current space. But there are tactics and strategies you could be doing in order to overcome that, protect your company and protect your employees.
So let's talk about that. If you are mission critical, first of all, I'm going to, and if you're on this call and you have product, service, and expertise that are mission critical, I want to still encourage you to focus. There's still not some massive door that you can drive your stuff up to and drop it off. So the relationships you have with the people who already know you, like you, and trust you, those are the people to check in with. If you are not a government contractor already, take a step back, learn and watch. This is not the time to go wandering and saying, how can I help? I love the advice of Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield. And his biggest advice is be a zero. Be a zero. In other words, you don't want to do it while you don't want to do anything to damage the mission and drag everybody down. You also don't want to slow things down by overachieving and getting in there and making a big mess and a lot of noise. So being a zero, being able to contribute to the flow in a way that doesn't disrupt and really is contributing to mission continuity is the way to think about it. So Josh, if somebody has been operating as a government contractor and then everything changed over the last couple of weeks, what are the things that somebody who is a legitimate supplier, but suddenly you're not on the A list, what do you have to keep in mind right now?
Well, and so the question is, you're currently a government contractor, right?
Yeah. And suddenly you're just not the most important thing anymore. Your project is not as critical as it was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, hands down, number one, you take stock of your current contracts, period.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is you need to call every single contracting officer that you currently work with on current contracts, and all the contracting officers, program managers that you've worked with in the last, call it 36 months. And, if you're mission critical, they're going to talk to you for sure. If you're not mission critical, mission essential, you still talk to them, right? You still talk to them. If you have current contracts, let's say it's services, hey, Bob, it's Josh. And just first let you know, you don't have to worry about us. We're good. From a contract perspective, We don't have any issues. You don't need to worry about us. That's on like a service side. And that's how you start all your conversations. On the product side, it's, hey, listen, it's very similar. Listen, our products, what we have is in stock. It's being shipped. If it's not all in stock, you tell them your timelines, right? Hey, listen, we've got 100 in stock, but we can get 1,000 in 24 hours, delivery in 4 days. Give those shipping delivery timeframes. But the most important reason why you take stock of your contracts, why it's always number one, is because after you say to Bob, hey, Bob, look, first, I just want to let you know you don't have to worry about us. However, based on the president's declaration, FAR 18.2 going into effect, and i.e. the micro purchase simplified acquisition thresholds have gone up, we recognize that there are requirements you may have that we possibly could support. And so in addition to what we're doing for you today, boom, 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 and you're using it as a business development call versus simply a retention mechanism for your current contracts. So the most important thing is taking stock of current contracts. And I'll finish with this. I've been working with clients all week on various contract issues, with the COs. And, a lot of these, a lot of the contracting officers have spoken to them and they say, well, it is, you're going to have to do remote. You got to do telework. There's a lot of nuances, Judy, to taking stock of your current contracts. But don't tell me, well, our employees, we have teams working with the client every day, Judy. We know what the pulse is. And I look at all these owners as I'm working with them and I go, hey, the owner, you need to be talking to all these contracting offices because the people on the ground, they don't understand what's happening at a higher level. So number one, take stock. That would be my priority.
Right. Got it. And so when you're thinking about, in general, what are the most consistent markers that you see year after year among government contractors, people that when they're starting out, based on the things that you're seeing, that they're going to be successful? What are the characteristics of somebody who's really going to do well time after year? What do you see?
There's 3 things. Okay. 3 things. Number one, you need to have a really strong teaming strategy. Okay. So I don't care if you're a small business, don't care if you're a mid-size, a large, you have to have a strong teaming strategy. Why? Because it's a fact. 90% of all companies that move into the federal market win their first 3 or 4 contracts as a subcontractor, right? Mm-hmm. So number one, you got to have a strong teaming strategy. Number two, you need to focus pre-acquisition. Hands down. If you're spending all your time, I have a sneeze coming. Get ready.
Use that.
Hold on. It's coming. It didn't come, but it will as soon as I start talking again. Number 2 is strong pre-acquisition. If you're spending all your time in the system for award management looking for opportunities, if you're spending all your time in some CRM, customer relationship management system, in order to show your boss, look at all the activity I've done, you're not going to succeed in government sales. So number 1, you need to see, I'm not looking at it and I'm trying to sneeze. Number 1, teaming strategy. Number 2 is focus on pre-acquisition. And number 3, the sneeze is keeping me from remembering, but those are the 2 most important, Judy.
I'll take 2 with no sneeze. It's okay.
There you go.
Being able to do your research up front and make a really tight choice on which federal agencies buy what you do, and then pick 2 or 3 and go deep. to be able to have those conversations with buyers who the data shows buy what you do, and get to know them before the next requirement comes out. And that's, again, what we're talking about in terms of pre-acquisition. One of the frequently asked questions that came up on one of the other COVID response webinars is, do you think there are going to be medical staffing requirements? Going, first, good heavens, yes. Second, if you're asking the question, you're waiting to see if medical staffing requirements are going to be issued, then I want to encourage you to right now start calling the people that you know. Imagine that this is so important to you that you're going to stop at nothing and turn over every rock, build every relationship, tap the sources that you have, and find out, what are they thinking? What are they buying? What do they love? And start talking to people now before you wait for requirements to get issued. Because when requirements get issued, they've got someone in mind.
Hey, Judy, real quick, getting some notes, comments, so we can see your screen.
Okay, got it.
There you go.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
No, you betcha.
Yeah, doing the best I can here. There we go, better. Yeah. So with all of this, Josh, if you had 3 pieces of advice for companies in the federal space right now, what would it be?
Right now.
Yeah.
If your products and services are mission critical, mission essential, definitely maintain and put on steroids all of your sales and relationship building practices. Mm-hmm. Number 2, whether you are mission essential or not, this is an environment that requires hyper communication and hyper responsiveness. Mm-hmm. So there is no such thing as voicemail today in this environment. If I call you at 9:00 at night because I need to get a procurement done for the Defense Health Agency or for the CDC or for HHS or for the Department of Veterans Affairs, whatever it is, if I get your voicemail, you just lost a contract. I've got $100,000 in micro purchase. I can, on a credit card, I can pay you $100,000 5 minutes after I get a hold of you on the phone. So hyper responsiveness, hyper communication, and oh, by the way, even the VA hasn't said they're not doing their SWSB set aside still. I assume they are. However, when it comes to medical supplies, remember, President's declaration of an emergency eliminates all those set aside requirements anyway. So stay available, be available at all times.
Right.
And then if I had to give a third bit of advice, it would be educate yourself. Yeah. Educate yourself. I mean, there are a gazillion resources in the market, mm-hmm. And some good, some bad. But if you follow Judy, she is fairly prolific in her education and content within LinkedIn. Definitely follow Judy so that you're always up to speed. So, speaking of which, if you're not currently connected to Judy on LinkedIn, do it now while we're in the middle of this discussion.
Do that for sure. Send me a note. Tell me a little bit about who you are and why you care. Josh, before you pop off, and I know you are on webinar number 5 of 8 this week, I think, in the next few minutes. You are also the host of the Game Changers podcast, which is partly how you met so many of the folks that are in this book. Remember, pick up mm-hmm. Game Changers. And when you are picking up, Meg, drop the note in the chat again, pick up your copy of Government Contracts Made Easier. Tell us about the Game Changers podcast. And I'm going to put the podcast link in the chat as well.
Yeah, I appreciate the plug, Judy. Game Changers for Government Contractors. We started the podcast 2 years ago. The host of the show is Michael Lejeune, who is my business partner here at RSM Federal. And what we do is we interview experts throughout the government industry, throughout public sector. And I don't know how many we have. I think we have close to 100. We have over 65,000 listeners. And I don't know, but I think it's the #1 podcast for government contractors in the nation. And if you haven't listened to it, it's pretty good. It's every episode is about game-changing tactics and strategies. So if you haven't listened to it, go out on SoundCloud, iTunes, whatever podcast app you got.
Excellent. And I will arm wrestle you later on when I can come back as a guest. I did it a couple of years ago. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
I would look forward to coming back. Josh, I know you're prepping for another broadcast and you've got to go. I want to say thank you so much for being in our community, for sharing your expertise. So watch for Josh, follow Josh on LinkedIn as well. And let's keep in touch. Meg, you've got other giveaways. Josh, I want to let you drop off and prep for your next stuff. Yes.
Hey, I got one final thing.
Yes.
Congratulations, Judy. Congratulations on the 2nd edition. I know how hard it is as an author to create one, and people think a 2nd edition is easier than a 1st edition. Oh, you just update some stuff? That's total BS. I know what it took for you to do this. I also know how valuable your content is. And so, I will simply tell everybody listening, if there should be no on the fence. If you haven't gone out and gotten it on Amazon, definitely get it. Judy is one smart individual. So Judy, again, before I go, congratulations on the new book.
Thanks, Josh, and back at you. In an environment where everything is changing by the week and the websites are migrating and all that stuff, I went, I can understand why there aren't more books on government contracting. My hair is short, so I can't tear out much of it. You have 3 books. This explains why your hair is as long as it is. So
that's right. That's right.
That, you have a good one. Look for Josh's books as well. Josh, we'll see you later. Stay well. All right.
Be good, Judy. Take care.
All right. Thanks. And so Meg, over to you. We're doing some giveaways at the bottom of the hour. What are we doing? We said we're going to give away stuff. And right now, if you are participating, one of the things we're doing is rewarding action takers. So what is your aha? The thing you learned most from this half hour? Pop it in the chat, because if you pop an aha in the chat, you are eligible for one of our prizes.
Exactly. And I'm just going to pop in again, Meg Kearns, doing all things in the chat. We have a couple giveaways going on. Like we said, at bottom of, every half hour, we're going to be doing a giveaway. And to be entered into that, you just have to be here and be participating in that chat. So as questions are asked, make sure that you are answering and participating. Also, we are going to have a grand prize giveaway at the end of the day. And in order to be eligible for that one, you will send a screenshot of your book order to my email, which I will also post in the chat here. Give you some little directions there, and we will get into that grand prize giveaway here in a little bit. But want to let you know that if you've already grabbed a book or if you've shared it online, we really, really appreciate that, and just encourage you to share with your friends, your family, and those in the industry who we know would benefit from the 2nd edition of Judy's book.
If you already bought the book, Carlos, if you just put your aha or your big takeaway from the half hour, you are still eligible.
So, totally eligible.
Absolutely. If you've already bought the book, yep. Matt Whitaker says there's no such thing as voicemail. Great commercial for Intelligent Office's live answer reception services. We're remotely answering every call. Yes, Matt Whitaker. Matt had, shout out to Matt Whitaker in Intelligent Office, who had kindly offered to host a live book signing before everything changed. And I was, on the one hand, my head was compartmentalized. On the one hand, I was hunkering down for pandemic. On the other hand, I was sending out invitations for a live launch. I'm going, why can't the two halves of my head connect? What was I thinking? So we will get together at some point, and thank you. Vanessa says, how to take stock of your current contracts and how to be a zero. Thank you, Vanessa. What else? Who's already got an aha from this half hour? Aha says, Carlos, for me, is that virtually is the way a federal agency have to go. Yes. What else? And we've got another question here. We're in a transactional business. How do you make the transition from being a small business on a GSA set-aside schedule where the competitive field is 50 companies to being a large on a schedule with 2,000 other vendors? We can't compete on price. My goodness, that takes us to our next half hour. I can hardly wait. Let's see, in strategy question, inch deep, mile wide, or mile deep, mile wide, inch deep. Yeah, right. If the strategy question, you go deep. All right, go narrow, go deep. That's the short answer. This takes me to one of the stories in the book, as a matter of fact. I'm just going to go look for it and you can follow along if you like, because this is one of the really important stories, one of the earliest ones. I'm going to just go find it as we get to the bottom of the hour here.
And as we're doing that, I'm going to jump back in because our first giveaway is actually right here at about 11:30.
Okay.
And that is for a copy of the Game Changers book that Josh has put out, because Judy is a contributor to that one. Her story is in there. So I will actually be
183. You should get it.
Exactly. And the link for his book is actually up in the chat as well. And in just about a minute, I will be randomly drawing from those who have participated, and we will post the winner's name in the chat here in just about 30 seconds.
Sure. And one of the stories in the book is of Neil Wilson. Neil Wilson is a Navy veteran and CEO of Gator Engineering in Florida. And Neil, he and I met in the, oh my goodness, 2007, I think, something like that, in Florida. And Neil was a veteran. He'd been working really hard on his business, and he kept hearing yak, yak, yak. We love service disabled veterans. And he was spent $65,000, his budget for the whole year, and he had nothing, nada, goose egg. He said, what am I supposed to do? I'm doing everything they tell me. And I said, well, what do you do? He said, I went to all these events all over the Southeast, and they said they love veterans, and nothing. I said, well, wait a sec. Let's take a step back. You are close to one Veterans Affairs Medical Center and NASA Kennedy Space Flight Center and one other federal agency. What happens if you go deep? Just take all the other business cards, put them in a separate pile. They talk to you in your sleep. You just say, we'll be back, and just concentrate on getting to know the people in the offices close to you. And Neil said, all right. He found something at Veterans Affairs Medical Center that he could bid, and he bid it, and he lost. I said, well, Neil, did you get a debrief? He said, a what? I said, a debriefing. Go back and ask them what you did well and what you could do better. I said, oh. He called me back and said, oh, hey, they really like me. And they said, well, we really wanted to give this work to you, but there were a couple of things that weren't right. So we have another thing coming up. You should bid that one. And he did. And he won. And that changed the whole game for Neil. Now, Neil built his relationships and his business in his local area first. He got involved in the Society of American Military Engineers. It is now one of the most recognized veteran-owned businesses in SAMI. In fact, Neil opened a door for me and introduced me to Joe Schrodel, the executive director of the Society of American Military Engineers, last November. And we built a new relationship. So these things come around, but all from going deep and really getting to know people. That makes all the difference. And Meg, we have a giveaway winner. The copy of Game Changers goes to Jennifer Kennedy. So congratulations, Jennifer. Yay. Excellent. And we're now in our second half hour, and we're going to be talking about the process. And I'll start out this by saying that if you're joining us now, we are going to have an active chat. We are doing a couple of things. We're offering consulting for a full 3 hours here. So you can ask me anything you want to ask about federal contracting. If I don't get to the answer live in the chat, and Meg is constantly reminding me what the questions are, if I don't get to it live, I will respond to you on email afterward. We're also launching Government Contracts Made Easier. If you don't have your book yet, you can buy it for $50. The list price that's online right now is 50% off list. So that $12.50, this is today only, and you can get this book. Price goes up at 10 o'clock tonight. Meantime, we're going to be spending a half an hour talking about each of the chapters of the book. And right now we're going to be talking about the process of selling to government. But I'll tell you this. At the bottom of each half hour, I'm going to ask you what your big aha is, what your big takeaway is from your time that you're spending here, because you have a lot of other things to do and now extra things to do right now. And so my promise to you is that you're going to come away with at least one thing that will help you in your business before you drop off this call. And so I want to start by saying there's no such thing as selling to government. I'm going to say it again. There's no such thing as selling to government. There's only selling to people. If your business, you think about where 90% of your business comes from, and I ask people this all the time when I speak, over and over again. I want you to put a note in the chat. What's the source of the leads of the business you close? Drop a word in the chat for me. What is it? Where does your business come from? Dibs, says somebody. Oh, Jennifer says dibs. Need another couple of answers. Where do the leads come from? Where does the original source of the opportunities that you win, where do they come from? Contracting officers directly. Yes, says Jennifer. Network relationships, says Gino. Couple others. eBuy, says Shivaji. Okay. My business matches, says Carlos. Network relationships. The vast majority of people that I talk to, at the end of the day,
that's a good one.
Forecasts are good. From the forecasts, you also, and I think, Dawn, there's another layer under that. So it's a clever answer, Dawn. At the end of it, people do business with people. If you look and realize where the business is that you get, there's a real breathing human being who likes you and trusts you. And so we're using all of these intelligence sources, but at the end of the day, there's no such thing as doing business with government. There's only doing business with people. And that is at the core of the topic that we're going to be talking about here, because and also taps the expertise of my special guest, Courtney Fairchild. So Courtney, welcome. We are so glad that you are here.
Thanks for having me, and congratulations. I'm so excited for you.
Oh, thank you. So Courtney, Global Services has been in business for 20 years. Your company has an 84% win rate on federal proposals. And how cool is that? Congratulations. How do you do it? What are those things that you and your team think about when you're trying to decide bid, no bid on a federal proposal?
Well, thanks, Judy. So our win rate is so high.
Oh, we lost Courtney. She'll be back.
She will be back.
Yep. In the meantime, my mom is on, or at least the table in my mom's house is on. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Hello, Mom's mouse. So Courtney will pop back on. Not sure why she dropped off. GSA schedules. Who here on the chat has a question about process of selling to government or GSA schedules in general? I want to see your questions because we're going to have Courtney able to answer those as well. Courtney may be back there. Courtney, hello. Why do you have that high win rate?
Sorry, Judy.
It's okay.
So you have to love technology in a time of coronavirus where things just drop.
You have cats, don't you?
I do, but I'm actually not, they're not here now, but yeah. But I'll just blame it on the cat. That's
okay. They're not taking responsibility anyway. Don't worry about it.
Excellent. Neither am I. Perfect. So in answer to your question, it's really about having a process from start to finish, as we were talking about. And the most important thing is that you follow that process, that you institute a rigorous process from start to finish through your capture, bid, and proposal development. And I think people are too quick to jump to proposal development prior to deciding where they should be focusing their resources, which agencies. You just had said we need to go deep and narrow, not wide and everywhere. That's not how you're going to win. And so making sure that you have that process in place to make an appropriate bid, no bid decision. How many people bid on something with an agency? They have no idea. They've never met that person. They've never, learned anything about that agency necessarily, but they quote unquote can do that work. And as you also said, I think missing the relationship aspect of federal sales is key. You have to understand what you're bidding in order to be successful at it, right? And I think as small businesses, it's very difficult because we don't necessarily have separate people, separate teams that are doing our bid or our capture, that are doing business development, that are doing proposal development. They may be even the same person, but that does not mean that the process does not have to be there to make those decisions. And then you have to follow them. If you have, a specific bid no bid chart and you say we're not bidding anything over XYZ%, and it comes really close and you really want to bid it, I find people excuse themselves from their own criteria because they get excited by an opportunity. So for us, our success has been making sure that our clients are positioned and well to be able to win the work, so that an appropriate proposal in our case will help you win. You need to have a great proposal, but a great proposal is with no relationship and no knowledge of the customer will not win you that work.
Yeah, you can help all the beautiful writers and graphics that you like. There's a concept, a lovely phrase I like, of writing novels for strangers. You don't want to be writing novels for strangers. I want you to think, here's what to do with that great opportunity that you see on sam.gov, and there's less than 30 days to go. And you don't know the buyer, and you don't know the budget, and you don't know the incumbent, and you don't know the history. Your odds of winning are in the single digits. Don't be that guy. When you see one of these things that looks perfect for you, and I'm going to ask this question of one of our former federal contracting officers, William Randolph, when he's a former FEMA contracting officer, former head of contracting, senior contracting officer in the Navy. I'm going to ask him this question. I'm going to ask Emily Harmon this question. I'm going to ask Jay Glass, Dr. Jay Glass from NASA Ames this question. See what their answers are a little later in this live stream. Great. How often do you need something and you put it out there to put a solicitation out there, and you have no idea and don't even care who wins, and you have no relationships at all with the vendors? Not very often. So when you see this thing and you don't know anyone involved, the single most valuable thing you can do is peel out the contact information for that person and say, how can I get to know them for next time? Because there's almost always a next time. There are very few things that are in the category of aircraft carriers. There's going to be one for the next 8,000 years. But it's not, your ship has usually not sailed. There's another boat coming. And so you have to keep that in mind. Courtney, your company does, as you can see, you can still see your homepage scrolling through, right?
Yeah, thank you.
It's a gorgeous website. And so in addition to doing federal proposals, your company has a longtime specialty in GSA schedule contracts and proposals with the General Services Administration. And you're one of the top companies in the country for doing that. GSA schedules are one of the, on one hand, one of the most widely discussed ways of doing business, but the numbers also show that GSA schedules, broadly speaking, account for about 10% of the dollars the federal government spends. So what are the things that a company, the signs or signals that a company should be seeing that suggest maybe they should be thinking about getting a GSA schedule?
Yeah, thank you, Judy. That's a great question. I'm fond of telling almost anyone that will listen that about 8 out of 10 companies that call me telling me they want my help with the GSA schedule or my team's help, we actually will advise them to hold, or that it's not the right decision for them. So there's some, a general set of questions that we walk through to find out whether or not a GSA schedule truly will be fruitful for that company. But the first and foremost is the why. Why are you wanting to pursue a GSA schedule right now? If the answer is, I want to see the opportunities on eBuy, or I feel like I'm missing out and someone told me I should get one, then it's probably not the right time. The right answer is, I've been speaking with an opportunity or a person that has an opportunity at USAID, and they've told me that, they'd like to consider me, but they're going to put it out through a GSA schedule, or that's how they purchase. It's about knowing not only who your target agencies are, but how your agency or that particular person preferences to buy. And so that's when you start to look into any contract vehicle, because you're forming a relationship, you know you have business development strategy, you intend to proactively develop and capture opportunities at a certain agency, and they are prone to using the GSA schedule. While you point out only 10% of the dollars go through that program, and well said, it's the only program where 10% of the dollars go through. So it's the most generically widely used contract vehicle out there, but it is not the sort of answer that I think everyone hopes. And most to the point, if you believe your phone will ring because you're one of the 5,000 contractors on the IT schedule 70, or now the multiple award schedule, that's not going to happen. So it's really just about making sure that you understand how you are going to buy,
Right.
or how you're going to sell, how your customers
Sure.
are going to buy.
Our topic, if you're joining us now, is process of winning federal contracts. And we're talking about government contracts made easier, which is the second edition of my book. One of the things that Courtney is a editorial contributor to the book. And so her wisdom is on page 103. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thanks, Judy.
And one of the things that she talks a little bit about there is how to know whether or not it's worth hiring a consultant to help you with your GSA schedule contract proposal. I mentioned this. I do not do federal proposals generally. You could not pay me enough money to do a proposal for GSA schedule contract. That's not because they're not important. I'm just not any good at it. And I wouldn't want to do it. Do the things you love. And Courtney and her team are really good at it. There are plenty of people who also tackle a GSA schedule on their own. But Courtney, what are a couple of signs that a company would find it a worthwhile investment to work with a consultant to help them with the GSA schedule? And I know you say
Sure.
no to a lot of candidates as well.
I think the key to our success has been saying no when it's truly not right, or if it's not going to be cost effective for a company as well. But the thing to keep in mind about a GSA schedule is that it's a 20-year contract vehicle potentially, and you need to make sure that you set it up in a way that is going to be effective for you on the back end long term. And I think that's the part. I think almost anyone can get a GSA schedule for themselves. I think we have companies that come to us that say they didn't negotiate it correctly, or they didn't get the right economic price adjustment clause, or they based it on the wrong thing. And those are almost impossible to undo. So it's important to do it right and to have a strategy behind what you're putting on schedule, whether that's levels of categories or different versions of product. I think people get caught up in thinking that what they're hiring a consultant for is the administrative back end of putting together this proposal. And while we do that as a part of the service, because of course we should, that is actually not what you're paying for. You're paying for the consulting and the strategy behind the technical proposal, picking the right special item numbers, doing the research, making sure that you're going to be effective, and most importantly, how it is that you're going to price and go to market and keep compliant long-term with the price reduction clause and some of the other things that I think are more complicated but ignored when you get on the schedule.
I mean, I asked this question of everybody who's on the call. Just think about the answer. Well, what a great time of year to ask the question. Courtney, do you do your own taxes?
That's a great question. Absolutely not. Never.
No, why not? Why not?
Because my return will be far greater when I hire a professional that specializes in that. Could I do my taxes? For sure, but my rate of return is going to be far less.
Yeah. You want to spend your time doing the thing you're really good at and have other people do the things that they're really good at. And you want to get all the strategic advantages. Now we've got some questions. We've got a question from Susan Cooper. She says, my GSA contract expired because I'd had it over 20 years. I'm in the process of getting a new one. Susan, congratulations. She said, can I still get micro purchase orders on credit cards or only with a GSA contract? Well, you've got three different concepts there, Susan. First of all, credit cards can be used for all kinds of values. So remember that credit card and micro purchase are not precisely the same thing. you do not need a GSA schedule for someone to make a micro purchase. And as Josh Frank pointed out in our previous segment, the current national pandemic emergency has lifted the cap on what micro purchases are. So suddenly we're in a very interesting place. Courtney, any thoughts about micro purchase, credit cards, GSA contracts? Help us sort that out.
No, I would just add that oftentimes companies come to me and their typical purchase, one of the questions we ask is, what is the average size of purchase when you make a sale?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is under the current micro purchase threshold without coronavirus is 10,000, then I would say you don't need a GSA schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if your average sale is under the micro purchase, then typically you would not need a contract. This is true for training. This is true for products and things. The only difference is sometimes you'll have an ordering agency that wants to make repetitive multiple award to you for that product. And they may say, but we have to buy off, or I want to buy off the GSA schedule. That would be the only difference. But we often counsel companies, especially if you don't have to be Trade Agreement Act compliant because of it. If you think about promotional products that are typically made in non-Trade Agreement Act countries, that's not the right place for a GSA schedule to begin with. And so if that's where you trade, then you've got to figure out a different way. And typically those sales are not over the micro purchase
Often they are under the micro purchase threshold. Exactly right. We've got a question from Gino. And so I probably need some clarification. Gino wants to know, do the same rules apply for IDIQs such as VETS2 or Vector? So Gino, I'd love you to clarify what rules you are asking about, and let us know on that one. Courtney, another question for you in the meantime. Let me think here. We get this question all the time. If somebody's worried about making enough sales to keep their GSA schedule, you've got this contract and, oh good, it's a hunting license, folks. It's a hunting license. And so often, and I look at the data every year, and the numbers are most stark in the information technology GSA schedules. It's not unusual for, in any given year, between 30 and 45% of the people that have a GSA schedule won zero revenue through that contract in a particular fiscal year. Now that may be because it's their first year, they're coming up to speed, but I can't know for sure why, but it's not unusual. And that's so painful. When you win that contract, you're also negotiating a minimum level of sales that you commit to driving through that GSA schedule in the first 2 years, 24 months. And if you don't know when your GSA schedule sales deadline is, you better know. Probably if you've invested in it, and you don't want it to lapse. So if you're seeing that deadline barreling in from the horizon and you have an empty order book, Courtney, what are some things you can do?
So the first thing I do is typically provide your information and tell them to call you so they can go through. You have a great process to help companies understand how to locate opportunities and people to make some quick sales to try to save those schedules. So I would say to those of you that are in that boat out there, I welcome you to contact Judy and talk a little bit more about her very specific services for trying not to lose your schedule, essentially. But it's the same advice that I would give to anyone, which is you need to be able to do the research, and that's what you're so effective in helping companies do. I think those companies perhaps did not think through why they were getting on schedule, who their target market was, who the buyers are, what their potential sales are. And it's all about proactive business development. It's relationship based. And it's leading the opportunity, not responding to an RFQ that you knew nothing about. You want to be the one that helps to create that performance-based statement of work or the need for it, because your solution, product, or service is the thing that the agency needs. And you have to be able to have that conversation and then drive it through your GSA schedule. The reason to have a schedule is for closure of business, not for opportunity identification.
How absolutely perfect. This is right. You think about one of the concepts that's evolved over the last 3 or 4 years with the General Services Administration is the concept of acquisition gateway. So visualize a hallway with doors, and you need to be taking your buyer down the hallway, putting their hand on the doorknob of your door and walking them through the door. You think about it that way. The people, and my wonderful friend who's, I think, on one of our segments coming up, Eileen Kent, talks about contract vehicles. Don't think of it as something that drives your cash all the way to the bank. Think about a contract vehicle as a bridge between buyer and seller. The bridge, you build it and it just sits there unless you drive traffic across it. So think about your contract vehicle as a bridge. Your contracting officers have lots of choices for bridges, and a GSA schedule is only one. They're going to use the bridge that they feel comfortable with, that can carry the weight, the volume of value of acquisition that is comfortable, that they're going to use a bridge that is built to carry the volume of business that's appropriate. It's a wonderful analogy. And everyone we talk to when we train our clients goes, oh yeah, I'm never going to forget that. Oh, I get that. And so you need to think about it that way. If you're thinking about how can I reach my buyer? I love Tom Lenny, who's the former head of small business programs for Veterans Affairs. He said, your federal buyer's thinking about 4 things. Do I know you? Do I like you? Do I trust you? How can I get to you? And the past federal contract data, about which I cannot say enough good things. Federal procurement data system, past federal contract data shows you how your buyer purchases. It shows you whether they use GSA schedules or they use something else. And if you haven't gone into past federal contract data to find out how does your buyer purchase, do they use a GSA schedule or not, then before you wander out looking for a contract vehicle or a GSA schedule, get the data. Understand how the federal buyers you're focused on actually purchase. It's absolutely critical work to do. So what else am I thinking here? Meg, we are coming up on the top of the hour. I want to ask folks here for your aha. And if you bought a book, let us know. If you haven't bought your book, and Meg is going to drop the link to do that into the chat. Today only, you can buy your copy of Government Contracts Made Easier for just $12.50, for goodness sake. If you don't need it, buy it for someone else. And you can buy it on ebook and start reading it right now. Shipping might take a little longer right now, but it will get to you. So buy a book. And if you've got questions about the process of winning government contracts, drop your note in the chat. Right now, it's time for aha moment. So drop your aha moment, the thing that you really discovered that is of value to you for this half hour. Sirad said, I got the book. Yay, thank you very much. Carla says, Tom Lenny's questions are one. Pat Daughter says, I bought 2. Thank you, Pat. Anna Ehrman points out schedule sales query. Yes, there are a lot of research tools, and there's about a dozen free online research tools, and I love showing them to all of my clients. Your procurement technical assistant center. Pat Daughter is in Minnesota. Thank you, Pat, for coming on from Minnesota. If you are not, if you already don't work with your procurement technical assistant center, another great resource. We have another question here: how to structure a sales contract to properly motivate federal sales teams when dealing with such long lead times. How to plan and approach different selling vehicles. Do we have one rep per vehicle? Allow for cross-selling? Do we spread ourselves too thin? Wow, how many questions can you ask there? I would say focus or go broke. Focus is better. If the person who's asking the question, you sound like you've got a larger sales team. So how do you motivate a team when you're dealing with long lead times? Any thoughts about that, Courtney?
You know, staying focused is about process to me, and having an appropriate pipeline. You should be working all opportunities simultaneously at all times, but you're in different parts and portions of those opportunities. And if you have an appropriate capture system, software, however it is that you're doing it, you've got to make sure that you are on a daily and weekly basis watering and feeding all of the opportunities, even the ones that are so far out that you need to be building those relationships as much as for the ones that you're currently writing a proposal. So it's just about managing that process and making sure that nothing falls through the cracks while you're focusing on one versus another.
Yeah, and if you don't, keeping track of your relationships is critical. So going deep is critical, getting granular, keeping track of every single contact, every single person and instance of contact or communication you have with them, and knitting together the story is vital. And so how do you keep your sales team motivated, I think has to do with focusing not just on, gee, what's the list of projects in the pipeline and solicitations, but how are things going with your federal humans? Where are the relationships? Who are you calling next? When did you talk to them last? What are you doing to help them? And we talk about this with our clients, and I'm going to give away a dip into special sauce here. What are the micro engagements? What are the things that, what kind of experience are you giving these people of you? How are you having them understand our best values? How it is that we can make their lives better? Helping them with their missions, helping them getting that agency's mission into the world and delivered better. And so think about that part of it, because marketing done well is an act of service. Every single touch is conveying something of value, is telling them a little bit more about who you are. And so if your sales team is not motivated, if they are just seeing this long expanse between October 1st and September 15th, and it's a long dry road, and oh my goodness, will somebody please feed me? I want to encourage you to come up with a micro engagement plan, something that is lighting the lights, set some more interim milestones so you can assess your progress as you go along. Courtney, how does that sound to you?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think now in times where we are not able to meet with our customers necessarily physically, or our sales team, I think those become even more important, because you've got to keep your sales team engaged, and you've got to keep your customers engaged. So it's about innovating and making sure that you're finding your touchstones without being able to have the lunch that you might have had, or whatever those things are. So in times like now, those micro touch points are going to be the most important. I agree.
They are indeed. Courtney, thank you so much for being such a wonderful friend and partner. Everyone else who's on the call, Meg, do we have a winner today? Do we have a winner from our for this half hour?
We do, actually. This half hour, your entry to win was to put in your aha moment from this half hour. And our winner for that one by random draw is actually Susan Cooper. So
Hey,
good job, Susan Cooper. I'll put that in there as
congratulations.
well.
Excellent.
Oh, and Susan did win a 15-minute call with Judy one-on-one in April. So just want to let you know that was the prize for this half hour, and we'll have another one coming up at 12:30.
Fantastic. Courtney, thank you so much. Again, I've got Courtney's website here. Visit Courtney's website as well. Read her wisdom on page 103. Excuse me. And we will see you, at least virtually, again really soon. It's such a pleasure to be friends. So
thanks so much,
thanks,
Judy.
Courtney. You have a good one.
Again. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye. Fantastic. We are coming up at the top of this hour. This is fun. And thank you. And so we are welcome. Those of you who are joining us for new, we're so glad that you're here. And so if you're just joining us, my name is Judy Bratt. I'm author of Government Contracts Made Easier. Welcome to our live stream book launch. Here's how it's working today. We are having folks be very active on our chat and entering your comments, your questions, and in our half hour, we're focusing on a different topic in each one of our segments. And I'm just going to pause this and flip over to another screen for a second and take a look at what we're working on today. Our topic for this half hour is teaming, and we're going to be joined by Tom Johnson of Set Aside Alert in a few minutes. I'm just looking for Tom to come back on now. He popped on earlier, but we're going to be talking about teaming. So welcome new arrivals. If you're new on the chat, please pop into the chat where you are from, where you're sitting right here, right now, because we've got lots of people from all over the country. So, but if you haven't put your geographic location, or you can even make up a location if you want to. What's your mysterious and coveted name? In fact, we have two offices in my home office. the sofa annex of the Congressional Research Service is on the lower level of the Summit Insight World Headquarters today. So put the, if you have an official name for your office or a location where you are here from, please put that in the chat now. We'd love to know. Emily's in Staunton, Virginia. Andrea's in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. How fantastic. Yes, so you can declare your official name of your home office, anything you like. Andrea, it says her organization wants to teach others about teaming and your meeting was canceled. Andrea, I'm so sorry to hear that. We can definitely talk about teaming here. Meg says her headquarters is the Mother of Chaos office. In fact, Meg does something special. Meg, I want to invite you to put in the chat. If you have young kids at home, under what age are you, tell us about what age the kids are that you're working with, Meg.
They're preschool to first graders. We're doing a daily live stream where I'm teaching my own children. And so we're putting that up on YouTube and live streaming for everybody to join us while the kids are out of school. So nobody's little brains turn into mashed potatoes. We don't want that to happen.
Well, put a link to your session. You have almost 1,000 people logging onto this thing.
Yes, we have just surpassed 1,000 kids that have decided that they were going to join us. Well, their parents decided that they were going to join us. So it's been a great endeavor and something positive to look forward to, just like this book launch during this time. So really, really happy to be here and to be able to offer to help others.
Well, thanks. Put the link to your, Sean is in the Bat Cave. How excellent. And Sean has 2 5 and 7-year-olds learning downstairs. So Sean really needs Meg's link. Everybody has Meg. Put the link to your afternoon learning session. There it is, Mother of Chaos /learning-live stream. Thank you. And we're going to start at the top of our hour. We're going to be talking about teaming. And I'm absolutely delighted to have our new guest popping in. Tom Johnson, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Judy. Glad to be here.
Excellent. So how many years have you been running Set Aside Alert?
Too many. No.
Oh, that can't be possible.
No, I've been running it for 19 years. The newsletter and the service has been around for 29 years. It was started in 1991. So we've got a long time experience working specifically with small businesses that are federal contractors. We don't
Wonderful.
In state and local, we just focus entirely on federal, working with all kinds of small businesses and all around the country. We have subscribers from Guam to Maine and from Anchorage to Miami. So we've got good coverage out there and we try and keep everybody up to date.
Fantastic. About how many subscribers do you have?
We got about 400. Yeah.
Wonderful. And you also offer webinars and online events, including ones that are related to teaming. And
that's
so
right.
And that's our topic for today. I love teaming. One of the things that's come up in all of our sessions, and I'm putting the link to Set Aside Alert here so you can check that out as well. One of the themes that comes up is the importance of teaming. And one of the biggest misunderstandings about teaming, and I hear this all the time from folks, is, hey, so-and-so is going to have us on their team. We're going to be fine. How often does that really happen, Tom?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest misunderstandings that people have, that the expectations don't line up with reality when they think about teaming in the federal market?
Well, I think amongst other things, there is a kind of an expectation that if you team with one of the big companies, you got a better chance for success. And I'm not sure that that's true. It seems to me that teaming with somebody who's maybe a mid-tier company, or perhaps a company that's a small business like you are, but who has gotten, been in the 8A program for perhaps 8 years already, has a book of business out there, can be a much better partner for you. And, you've got their attention. Whereas with the large companies, I'm not sure that, you're going to be able to get a sufficient bandwidth out of them to really help you along.
Yeah, one of the questions people often have is, how can I get primes to return my call? I'm going to unpack the big secret. Remember, at the bottom of each hour, we're going to be asking you, what's your aha? And we're going to be giving away nuggets. And I'm going to give you one right now. And if this resonates with you, I want you to tell me right away. The one thing that will always get the prime to return your call is to bring opportunity. Hi, we're a service-disabled veteran-owned business in a hub zone, and here's our capabilities. Please call us. Crickets. versus, hi, we've just been over to see the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center and they say they're going to die if they don't have what we've got. Want to talk? That's seductive. That is always going to get your call returned. So bring opportunity, not just, hey, we found a thing on SAM.gov. We think you should win. Really? No. You want to come with something that where you've got relationships in the account, you've got something special, and you can contribute to the win.
Right. You're absolutely right on that. And I think, that is a reminder also for not only the teaming environment, but for government contracts in general, is that you've got to do a lot of work out there, figuring out what the market is, figuring out what the opportunities are, figuring out where you fit before you go out and, make a slapdash effort at it and fail. Courtney was just talking about GSA schedules, and it's very true in that environment as well. Lots of people who, frankly, a GSA schedule isn't going to do you a whole lot of good, and she's quite good at counseling people who come to her that way. So,
exactly right.
Yeah. Also, there's a lot of anticipation out there, and people don't realize that, gee, you got to do some work in order to make this whole thing success.
Sure. One of the small business liaisons from one of the large primes had said to me, don't make me your first rodeo. If you haven't already got experience with teaming, don't come to me first. I won't name which federal prime it was, but it was a large federal prime. And she says, nah, come with experience and show me that you've already participated in teaming, that you participated in a proposal effort. Show me where you've been, show me your teaming chops before you even come to my party. Right. So that was worthwhile. On the other, if you are on this call and you are involved in any form of staffing and you're a woman-owned business, I got a contact from somebody, a veteran-owned business that had seen an IDIQ at NOAA, an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And I want to pop that up. I want to see if I can do a screen share of this thing, if I still got it hanging around my screen here for a second. Oh, sure, there it is. Oh ho. All right. Can you see the screen?
Yeah. Whoops.
Solicitation. New share, solicitation. Just a second. Here we go. Woohoo. Fun. All right. So there's this solicitation coming up. And so if you are if you're a woman-owned business and you're doing staffing, and the kinds of things that you offer include administrative assistants, business analysts, consultants, data entry, facilitators, if you do any of these things, pop a note in the chat and say, I want to team, and I'll introduce you to Tony Tarkowski. And this is also an example. I'm not a professional matchmaker, but I must say I would stop breathing before I would fail to connect two people who need to meet each other. Connecting people who need to meet each other. Tom, you've been at an event and someone will talk to me. I say, stand right here. Wait, I'll go to the other part of the room, bring someone over and say, here, the two of you need to talk. It's what I do. And it's fun. Yeah. And it's very rewarding, honestly. But that takes me to one of the other resources that, close current tab, there we go. One of the other resources that is of value, if you don't know about GovMates, I want to bring that to your attention. Let me see if I can get my correct screen share here. There we go. And GovMates. And there. Close other thing. Close all tabs. Go away. There. Can you see the GovMates screen? No, just a sec. I just managed to stop it. Let's see if I can start it again. There we go. Share and GovMates. We got it. Okay. And we're talking about teaming in this half hour, so please pop your questions about teaming in the chat. We will get to them. GovMates, I have mysterious and coveted identity. I'm also a GovMates ambassador, I'm proud to say. GovMates is a free teaming platform, and it's been put together to connect small to small, small to large, government buyers to primes, and has made over 23,000 matches and over 3,600 introductions. If you are a government contractor, you already have the basic tombstone information that you need. You can enter it. It is most helpful if you're in a situation like Tony Tarkowski is. Hi, here's my business. I'm a government contractor, and I have an opportunity, and I need a partner who does this. Registration is free. And so go on and explore it. It'll take you about 20 minutes with all the same basic information that you need. Your keywords are important. This database is not going to feed you, but if you have an opportunity, you need a partner with specific qualifications, it's darn helpful. So, Tom, you're following a lot of different issues right now. What are the things that you think the current situation brings up with respect to teaming? What should people be keeping in mind?
Well, I think, first of all, I presume you're speaking of the current COVID difficulties that we're having.
Yep.
and that everybody's deeply embedded in these days. So I think in terms of teaming, obviously it's going to be a little tougher to even connect with people at the moment. I'm used to going to matchmaking events and to networking and to, you and I are particularly involved in the National Veteran Small Business Coalition chapter meetings here. And those are great places to make those connections, but right now it's going to be, harder to do. One of the things that we do in Set Aside Alert, and I just went to the post office and got our edition out for this coming Friday. But we have in virtually every issue lists of small businesses that are winning contracts and what agency they are winning that contract at. How much the contract is for. That's a great resource. We also list companies that are newly certified as HubZone or 8A companies. And if you're a HubZone company and you need an 8A partner, that would be a great way to go out and find people. We also normally have a column on teaming opportunities where people actually post their own capabilities or the capabilities they're seeking in a teaming partner. We didn't have space this edition, unfortunately, because we've got a full page in there on resources that you can use to help you get through this era and other, extensive information, along with our usual calendar of events, most of which are canceled or postponed at the moment. So we're going to be struggling a little bit for the time being. At the same time, opportunities are coming out every day, and the federal pipeline is not getting any smaller from what I've seen.
No, it just got bigger. It got bumpier as well. We've got a question from Don Johnson. He says, relationship is emphasized a lot. However, what if you don't have the relationship and you can bring knowledge and skills and abilities to the table with the prime? So how do I present the opportunity, and in what format? Do I submit a type of proposal describing my abilities and cost, or exactly what do I do? So,
well, yeah, I think you'd want to use a one-page capability statement that we have everybody, we encourage everybody to prepare, which, by the way, should not be a static document. It should be a capability statement that you update for that specific encounter, whether it's you going in and meeting with somebody or you passing your capabilities along to companies that may want to team with you. Capability statement should include, obviously, all the contact information and NAICS codes and that kind of thing that people often use to kind of evaluate teaming partners, but also at least several good, solid references of past performance. They don't have to be lengthy. They just have to be, 2 or 3 lines or sentences about this opportunity that you completed successfully for this agency. And, here's a few words about it, so that the viewer, as you said earlier, people, will team with those who they know and have confidence in. And so those are things that you can present in a capability statement. Now, if you have a specific opportunity you're going after, that you're trying to get this partner to adopt you as another member of the team, then of course you want to be more forthcoming about what that opportunity is, why you should be part of the team, what you add to their capabilities in terms of specialization. You were talking earlier about NOAA. And I'll go back to an actual instance about 5 years ago, maybe it was 6 or 7 now, on NOAA Link, which was kind of a master indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, multiple award contract that NOAA put out. And so I was working with a contractor who had a very strong interest in that, who already was doing some work at NOAA, but he needed some additional expertise in several areas. And one of those was the need for a communications partner. So we teamed up with one of the larger telecom companies. But another area that was weak in his capability at that particular time was cybersecurity and crypto. And so we actually went online with the registration list for the industry days, and there had been several industry days with regard to that contract in advance of award. And we found a couple of small businesses in there that were crypto and similar capabilities. And we went out to them and said, you know, we're bidding on this contract. We'd like to talk to you about being a member of our team. And in fact, one of those companies did, accept our invitation, became part of the team. My client actually won a piece of that NOAA Link contract, which was a very large multiple award, 10-year IDIQ. And so by focusing on what capabilities you need or what capabilities you offer and finding matches in that regard gives you the opportunity to make a good run at it.
Right. No, that's absolutely right on. We're talking about teaming in this half hour. If you've got a question about teaming, please pop it in the chat. If something that we're talking about resonates with you and you go, oh, I'm going to be asking for your aha moments at the bottom of the hour, and people who are adding their aha moments and buying the book are both eligible for prizes at the end of the half hour and our grand prize for our live stream. So this is welcome to the launch party for Government Contracts Made Easier. If you haven't yet bought the book, it's available on Amazon right now. Meg has dropping the link in the chat for you. You can grab the book, as many copies as you like. It's 50% off list price, $12.50 just today. We don't have a set of Ginsu knives going with that, but you actually can pick up other books while you're there, including one I just contributed a chapter to, Game Changers, with Josh Frank and Michael Lejeune. So they're both available, and we'll have other expertise from other folks that are here on the half hour. So any other questions? Susan bought the book. Yay. Thank you, Susan. Don asked, did you check references? How did you know that you could trust the company to establish a teaming relationship? Don, I love your question, and I'm going to offer a couple of thoughts. I love the work because trust is a critical theme in all of the work I do with my clients, both between me and my clients, within my team, and it's something that we work on with our clients to give you a framework for understanding how to create trusted relationships with your federal buyers and partners even before you ink a contract. And I draw on the work of Dr. Brene Brown out of the University of Houston, and social scientist, and her work includes a model that cleverly, so we can remember things, acronyms out foundations of trust to the word braving, 7 different elements. B for boundaries, R for reliability, A for accountability, V for vault, that's confidentiality, I for integrity, N for non-judgmentality, and G for generosity. And Dawn, those elements, Rising Strong is her work, where you can find the details and some stories that really lock in this model. I find that, and this is part of what I teach when I'm working with clients, if we're looking at how can we rely on these 7 elements to reflect different ways to build trust in those micro engagements, those tiny interactions. Did we keep our 10-minute call to 10 minutes if they said they only had 10 minutes? That's a great example of a boundary. Did we show up when we said we were going to show up? reliability. You see these tiny interactions because your federal buyer is an intensely risk-averse human being on the best of days. We are currently not in the easiest of days. So when your federal buyer or a potential teaming partner seems even more anxious and risk averse. And the second most risk averse life form is the federal prime contractor, because they have everything online. When they choose you, their reputation is also on the line. And your federal buyer has everything on the line, including their promotion, which affects their ending salary, which affects whether their kids go to the best college, which affects whether their grandkids go to Disney when Disney comes back. All those things, it's personal when they choose you. So the choice of a teaming partner, as well as the choice of a contractor, it's very, very personal. So the building of trust, when you're checking references, for sure, you want to be working with a qualified lawyer that has federal contract experience. People say, where can I get a teaming agreement on the internet? And the answer is nowhere. There's no teaming agreement you can get that's going to be perfect for your company and your partner and the agency that you are in. Tom, in your experience, what are some of the indicators that people look at when they're trying to assess the fit of a teaming partner?
Well, certainly you would want to go and look at, as you mentioned earlier, Federal Procurement Data System or USA Spending,
Mm-hmm.
to determine if they've already got some experience in the federal market that correlates with what they may have stated in terms of past performance. Now, it's quite possible that they were a subcontractor, and so that's something you would want to ask them about when you actually got in conversation with them. I think another thing that's very important is reviewing the company's website. And what we find these days is a lot of websites are not put together in what we would say is a government-friendly environment. You need to kind of look at your website and evaluate, do you have all the information there that somebody who is looking for a teaming partner would use to evaluate you? And are you showing it, with your best foot forward? I think, it's easy to get a template and go throw a website up there when in fact what we're looking for is confidence, reliability. You want to see, for instance, who the staff people are, especially if they have special expertise. You want to know a little bit more about certifications, whether it's business certifications, but also Microsoft certifications or any of the other professional.
Yeah. And if you're teaming with somebody and it's important that your partner have an 8A certification, check in the Dynamic Small Business Search database and verify when their 8A expires. Because if somebody said they're at 8A and they've got 5 months to go, that's not so good. For example, you want to be looking at that. For sure, you want to look at the prime contract awards that your potential teaming partner has, looking up in the Federal Procurement Data System, or its soon-to-be successor in beta.sam.gov is going to be contract data. Use the Federal Procurement Data System while you can, but take a look at the footprint of your potential teaming partner. Trust your gut. They call it gut feel for a reason. So build those relationships, meet with people ahead of time and just talk with them. And you can also ask other folks, what was that experience like in teaming with so-and-so? All good things and worthwhile. We are coming to the bottom of our hour. We're going to be doing a giveaway. So please drop your aha or your light bulb moment in the chat. And if you've bought a book, send the screenshot to Meg. And you are eligible for our prize for the half hour as well as our grand prize for our live stream. So Sharad wants to know, how do I find out and where if a company is on a contract as a subcontractor? Sharad, you've often got to ask them. There's not 100% capture of subcontract data in the federal databases. So it ends up being in part in being trust as you're going along. It's a tricky one. Great question, Sharad. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Aha moments, put them in the chat because we're coming up to the bottom of the hour on teaming. We're delighted that you've been here. Meg, what are we giving away this half hour? What of my time are you giving away this half hour?
We are actually giving away 2 signed copies of Government Contracts Made Easier. So one for you and one for a friend or whomever else you think would benefit from it. I love that Eileen has hers up there. Thank you so much, Eileen. And so that's what we'll be giving away in just about 2 minutes here. So make sure you get either your aha moment or your question in, and so we can enter you and pick that winner.
And Tom, tell us a little bit about Set Aside Alert as we close out. What's a subscription and what's involved, and what are the reasons why people love it? Other than Alice, who is a fantastic writer and is right on top of the regs every time. You're so lucky to have Alex Lipowitz on your staff.
Yeah, she does a great job. If you go to our website, you can review a past issue there. If you want to see something more recent, just send me an email. tjohnson@setasidealert.com. Be happy to provide a more current one. I will also mention, Judy, that the webinar that we're doing this Friday on coronavirus will be very helpful for those companies who are, in a spot at the moment, covering a bunch of forms that you need to put together now under the new Families First coronavirus. I can't even think of the long name on that.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Would please send me the link. One of the things that I'm putting together on my site is an FAQ page related to resources for government contractors. So there I'm compiling things like memos from the Office of Management and Budget, but also recordings of webinars. There's a webinar that's going on from my friend Carol Bernard at Govology right now. You're doing one on Friday. Jennifer Schaus is doing her second Friday webinar.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
There's so many of these going on, and there's so much goodness being shared all at once. And so if you're on this webinar, watch for that landing page. Meg, it's the bottom of the hour. Who is our winner?
I just went ahead and stuck that in the chat. Our giveaway winner for this one is Carlos, who's been super active. Yes, so thank you. And Carlos, if you will just message me your address, we will be happy to get those over to you and in the mail.
Fantastic. Tom, you're welcome to hang out. You've also got a lot of other stuff on the go. Thank you so much for being our guest on Teaming today. And we'll see you again.
Thank you. And everybody buy the book. I did. I bought it last night. So.
Thanks. All right. Thank you so much. And so welcome to 12:30. I'm going to hang on for just a second here. I'm going to breathe.
As Judy was saying, if you have not already grabbed that book, we're going to stick the link back in the chat. And once you have purchased it, if you just send us a screenshot, we don't need any of your information, just to say that, hey, it's on its way. If you get that and send it over to my email, we'll put my email in there as well. You will be entered to win the grand prize for today, which is a bunch more of Judy's time. And you're going to want to have that. So make sure you get those over to us. If you have questions about anything, put them in the chat and we'll be sure to get to those.
Welcome. And so welcome to the bottom of the hour. We are at the middle of our 3-hour live stream. We're launching Government Contracts Made Easier, the second edition of my book. I am so excited that you're with us. We're doing a really active Q&A and chat as we go along. If you are new or joining us or haven't already popped in the chat, please tell us the name of your secret office location or what city you're in right now. If you haven't already done that, let us know where you're here from. And our theme for this half hour is relationships. Relationships, so important. And it was really at the core of a critical experience that I had 5 years ago that changed everything for me. And because up to that point, I had, I'd written, where'd it go? I'd written the first edition of the book, Government Contracts Made Easier. I had advised thousands of companies on multi-millions of dollars of contracts. I could tell you anything you wanted to know about federal contracts except for one thing. How did somebody actually win the business? Which didn't really matter till it really, really did. My business was up and down all over the place. I worked for the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C. for 15 years and got to be Canada's top expert helping Canadian companies win U.S. federal contracts. And I left the embassy in 2003. And I didn't really have, honestly, my best value really terribly well defined, but it was all right. And then I got a big contract. I was going to work with 7 companies for a whole year, different sectors, everything from glass lock containers to big generators to waterless shampoo, go figure. And my job was going to be to work with them on a sales plan and the sales training, then get all these big meaty deliverables up front and then just coach them for 10 months. It was going to be great. And I knew exactly who I wanted to work with. One of our guests here, Eileen Kent. I thought, Eileen, can you help me do this? She said, yep, it's what I do. I said, great. Can I see it before we do it? I said, nope. I said, nope. She said, nope. I'm going to pay you a bunch of money. And I'm not going to see what I'm going to get. And it's going to be fine. She said, yep. I said, do me. What I learned as we created, and I listened at Eileen's knee and we delivered sales plans for these folks. We put it all together and I thought, great, now I just have to coach them. And they said, the company said, great, when are you making the introductions? I said, what? I said, the introductions. They go, no. They said, yes. I said, no. They said, yes. And at the end of the day, I had to pick up my big girl socks and open the sales plan and pick up the phone. I was making sales calls on everything from generators to, I kid you not, I was dialing for dollars for endodontic equipment, root canal stuff. The most important thing that I learned over what was one of the most terrifying experiences, because I had not done this before. I'm a strategist. I had a graduate degree. I don't sell things. Came on the day that I ended up talking to Dr. Ned Robertson with the Indian Health Service in Penobscot, Maine. And Dr. Ned Robertson told me what he did on his Tuesday off. He was sewing curtains. And his nephew was just got accepted into Georgetown Medical School. How wonderful. And oh yeah, he'd be happy to talk to the endodontic company. And he hung up the phone. And I went, oh, that wasn't so bad. I just had to take my time and get to know Dr. Ned. I think I know how this works. And that was the moment when I realized there's no such thing as selling to government. There's only selling to people. And with that, I want to welcome Eileen Kent, my wonderful friend and partner out of Chicago, and William Randolph, who's here with us, a former Navy acquisition professional and also acquisition management from FEMA at Department of Homeland Security. Welcome to our half hour on relationships.
Good afternoon.
Oh,
So, Eileen, you have so many stories, and William, you and I got to know each other at the conference at Joint Base Langley, Fort Eustis in January. One of the questions that I promised earlier that I would ask is, in your experience as an acquisition professional, about what percentage of the time did you need to, or you running an acquisition, you had to put something on the street and you had no idea what vendors at all you might be interested in doing business with, roughly? What percentage of the time you had no idea, you put it on the street and whatever?
Probably 50%, maybe 40 to 50% of the time. Just not having situational awareness of the environment, of the marketplace, having market intelligence that was useful. So it has gotten a lot better in the last 10, maybe 15 years, but I can distinctly remember a time where there was just, let's describe it as best we can and throw it on there and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are the things that, in your experience, when somebody was calling you for the first time as a new vendor, that would really get you interested in getting to know them? What would make somebody you've never talked to before stand out and go, okay, I want to talk to them again, even though I might not be ready to award them work?
You know, Judy, it's really two things that, in my opinion, were the standout activities or engagements. The first was when people clearly understood who they were as a business and what they did. It was extremely clear. Like we were focused, this is what we do. And then the other side of that coin is they were extremely clear about what they didn't do. The person that comes in and talks to you about this is who we are and this is what we are not, I'm willing to have that conversation because they're not trying to be everything to everybody. They knew where their strong suits were. They knew where they were being able to be competitive. And that level of self-awareness was often refreshing.
Great. By contrast, what's the one biggest thing that a vendor that you'd never met before would do, and you would be instantly, oh my goodness, I'm out of here. I am just not ever going to want to do business with them. What's the one big fatal thing, big fatal common mistake people would make?
That's an easy one too. They lead with the slick sheet instead of asking questions. Instead of probing, where's my pain? You know, it's like, well, I know you're hurting somewhere, so here's my slick sheet of all of the medicines I have available. So leading with the slick sheet was always the, okay, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to be doing today.
Got it. So, William, you're now CEO of Think Acquisition. What does Think Acquisition do? Speaking of know what you do, walk your talk for us. Tell us, what does Think Acquisition do, and who do you help, and what problem do you solve for them?
So thank you, Judy. I think Acquisition is truly, it serves two purposes. One, it's a training and development company. There were a lot of holes in the training and development space in leadership and in acquisition that I saw during my 26 years of government experience. And that was the driving force for me going back into the GovCon arena and becoming a government contractor, because I wanted to fill those holes. So that's first and foremost. And then secondarily, we provide training, not only training, but we also provide consulting and acquisition support. So I do have a contract where we provide what I call hearts and hands to help contracting officers and contract specialists deliver value and execute mission.
Okay. William is also, you connect with him on LinkedIn. You'll see the link in the chat. He is now a video star of the internet, offering William's whiteboard. And you've got wonderful vignettes and lots of wisdom, lots of W things going on here. William's whiteboard wisdom is absolutely great. And so connect with him and follow him on LinkedIn as well. William is also one of my, as a Navy guy, it's entirely appropriate as a Navy veteran that William's one of our Top Gun coaches with our programs. When somebody does our federal business intensive program, you have the opportunity for an earned bonus. When you have done your research, when we work together with Eileen, get your competitive analysis done, get your sales plan built, and you start to research the individual federal humans that you want to talk to. Where Top Gun came from, the United States Navy realized during the Vietnam conflict that the pilots' survivability was so much better after their first 3 or 4 live missions. And the Navy took a step back and went, how can we bring more of these folks home alive, and created Top Gun as a program to create the best simulated mission training before people went out into the battle space. That's the principle we bake into our programs now, so that when we're working together as clients, you have the chance to do relationship practice, to ask the awkward question and go, and William can say, no, I wouldn't say it like that. And you can have that. I'm not even on those calls. That's a private conversation that William has with my qualified client teams when we're working together. And so very special. Nobody else does this. So William, thank you so much for working with our clients and supporting our teams. It's just so much fun when we do this. But before they get to William, they got to work with Eileen. Eileen Kent has trained over 10,000 people, including the federal government employees themselves, and helped nationwide companies win over $65 million in federal contracts in everything that goes on under, in, and around a federal building, including everything from roofing to rental furniture, and has helped hundreds of companies build their plans and learn how to build those relationships. Eileen, welcome. We're thrilled that you're here to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. And William, great to finally see you. I've been looking at your whiteboard videos too. Good job.
Thank you so much. It's very kind of you.
Love it.
Yeah. Eileen, in your experience, what are the things that are hidden in plain sight? All of us as human beings, we've been connecting with and building relationships with other people for our whole lives. From the time we were tiny babies, we're winning people over. What is it that is suddenly in about the sales process that suddenly, oh, I don't want to do it? What is it that keeps people from just building relationships with their federal humans? What makes it so hard?
Well, that's a great question, Judy and William. I really welcome you to, come in and help me out here too. But I find, picking up the phone, you can have all the data in the world. You can have the greatest service in the world. You could be the best of the best of the best. But so many people have this fear of picking up the phone and actually making a contact with someone. It's easier to write an email and forward your capability statement. Here I am, drop it off and dash, right? I'm sure William got a million of those. Constantly getting emails with a copy of their CAPE statement with nothing behind it, no heart behind it, as you said earlier. And what I think that the fear, the call reluctance fear, literally goes down to the day you were born. We call it the fear of rejection. What happens is if somebody doesn't love you in the first minute that you're talking to them, you feel rejected. Why? Because when you were born and when if your mother didn't accept you immediately, you'd probably die. So the issue here is when you get rejected, someone doesn't want to talk to you, or someone doesn't want to work with you, or they say no to you, it's hitting you right in your solar plexus, right in your gut, because it's an early survival issue that's way, way, way deep down. People would rather die than be rejected. And even the best keynote speakers, the best actors hate rejection. The best athletes don't like to be picked, first on the team. There's this gut reaction. So the issue is a person that's facing their phone, they're already running the scenario through their head that I'm a salesperson. So they immediately picture themselves in the check jacket and the funny tie and them looking like the used car salesman. They suddenly put that picture of themselves out there. And then before they even make the call, they're already going, this person's going to hate me because I would hate me. And what we really need to do is we need to just let go of all that stuff. Because first of all, you're a person. I'm a person. We have families. We have pets. We like to go on trips. And before I pick up the phone, I look at the opportunity when I'm going to a government employee and I don't come in with this attitude, but in my brain, I'm saying to myself, they're a federal employee. They work for me. Not that I'm going to call them out on that, but they're there to help me. And if I go to them in a soft and comfortable manner, saying, hey, listen, hi, my name's Eileen. I was hoping you could point me in the right direction. And then they're going to say, well, what are you looking for? And then you can come in with, I'm looking at some information here that I've done some homework. I see that you're working with XYZ company on an XYZ contract vehicle doing ABC. So you can say, I understand you're working with XYZ roofing company on an IDIQ that comes to an end at the end of the year. I too am a roofer. I'm local. I'm on the GSA schedule contract. I was just hoping, I'm not selling to you today. I just want to clarify a few things and try to understand your protocols. So I know the best way to work with you. I want to learn what they're doing right. So I make sure I do things right. Do you have a couple minutes that maybe we can just have a simple conversation to just get an idea of what you're doing? Or if you don't have time now, we can set up a meeting. But I've done my homework. I've handpicked you to talk to you. And I'm hoping to, get a little bit more information from you based on the homework that I've done. So I'm going in with homework in hand, my capes in hand, just like what William said. I know what I do. That's the biggest thing, is knowing what you do and knowing what you don't do. So you can say to them, listen, I'm ready to have this conversation with you. I'm in SAM. I got a GSA schedule. I know what I'm good at. And I know how to refer good people for things that aren't a fit for me. So I'm also a resource to them. So my goal is to basically approach them with, I'm just trying to understand your protocols right now. And I'm just trying to make sure that it's the right time, it's the right place. I've got certain products and services I think may fit based on the research I've done. But I would like to have just a soft information gathering conversation. I'm not going to pressure you about buying from me yet. You've got people that you're using that you know, trust, and love. The other thing I like to do with people when I change my mindset of approaching people is, so what if they don't want to do business with me? So what if they're not ready for me right now? I might make a new friend. If I go in there saying, look, I'm just here to get to know you. I'm here to validate you. I'm here to ask you a couple questions. Maybe you're a potential client, maybe not. Maybe you can point me in the right direction. I've suddenly taken the stakes and lowered them a little bit. I'm not going in for the kill in the beginning. I want to get to know this person, what their role is, what their place is in the big picture at the agency. And I also want to be able to extend to that person my expertise in the business. You know, for example, if I were to talk to William, the first thing I would say to him, first of all, William, maybe you can go with me on this, okay? William, it's Eileen Kent. How are you doing today?
Great, Eileen. How are you?
Good. And I know this sounds really cheesy, but I got to tell you, William is my favorite name. And you want to know why?
Thank
That was
you.
my dad. That was my dad's name.
Oh,
Thank
And
you.
he was Major William J. Kent. He served in the Air Force since the very first year in World War II. My eldest brother is a William. He goes by Bill. And then I have a nephew named Will. So do you go straight by William, or do you have nicknames in your family for your name?
William is fine. And also, please thank your father for his service.
Oh, I will. I'll do it right straight to heaven. He was a World War II vet. So we'll send him up to him, right? But William's a very special name to me. So I just wanted to say hi. And I also want to know, I understand that, let's just say it's a facilities opportunity, okay? I understand that you're working with Tetra Tech and AMEC and Johnson Controls on some energy work that's probably coming to an end in a couple of years. And I see that it's an IDIQ. I've done some research, and I'm a small local woman-owned business, and I just got my schedule. And I was hoping, before I go jumping over to the big boys, is there any way that you and I can have a short conversation about how you work with businesses on IDIQs, if there is even an opportunity for a small woman-owned business that does this work, and I can get a general idea of what these guys are doing right so I can learn? Can we book a short?
Absolutely. That would be great. You know, I'm so glad you did the homework to know, you know, kind of what we're doing, who we've been playing with in the past. And we're always looking for dynamic small businesses to join in the fray. So absolutely, I'd love the opportunity to do that.
Oh, great. Well, I already have been working with Tetra Tech. I'm working on my work over with AMEC, but would love to find out, you know, what people are doing right on base. I'm not quite ready to do business with you directly today, but I'd like to get an understanding of how everything kind of works out, maybe where you post things, and maybe even talk to the facilities team. Would that make any sense? Maybe invite them to our meeting?
It makes total sense. So I appreciate you telling me that you're not quite ready yet, but you have to start somewhere. And again, every one of those large companies that you just talked about, they started with, we're not ready yet, but we're leaning into it. So yes, that would be great.
Oh, good. And by the way, William, I have 3 of your facility people's names. I'm looking at Joanne, Bob, and Samantha. They're part of the Society of American Military Engineers, and I see they're also at your website. I'm hoping that when we meet, is it possible that you would invite them as well so that I can just do it all in one?
Absolutely. I'd be willing to make that invitation. And I think Samantha is probably the one you really want to talk to. So what I'll do is I'll send a warm invite. So if you don't have an opportunity to connect with all of them, I think your greatest challenge.
Great, Samantha. Then that's perfect. You just saved me 2 other phone calls, and everybody tightened up their time. So you saved me time, saved me energy. Now, does it make more sense for me to come personally, or maybe can we start off with a webinar like this? What do you think, William?
I'm sorry, I missed that last.
Yeah, your
Just say
video
that again?
froze for a second there.
Oh, okay. So let me just say that again. So William, I'm just going to touch my mouse here. Maybe it'll speed things up. So William, Samantha, since it would be you and Samantha, does it make more sense for me to book a time to come in personally, or can we do a webinar somewhat like this to start with? What works for you?
You know, I think because of all the craziness that's happening right now, the webinar idea is actually the best.
Good. Good. And you know, I'm only 50 miles away from the base. Do you guys ever come on and go visit businesses and see their operations? Could that be a next step possibly once this is
Possibly.
all over?
Yeah, I think the program officers probably do that a lot more than the contract shop. But I'd be willing to add that invitation to the list, and who knows what the opportunity may be.
Good, that's perfect. Well, and then we get out our calendar. So thank you, William. Yay, William.
Thank
Good
you,
My
William.
pleasure.
You guys are great. Welcome to Top Gun Contracting, guys. You are fantastic. I'm sorry. I'm just overwhelmed. That is just one of our attendees said, "Is this realistic?" Honest to Pete, this is the way it really happens. This is the room where it happens, the room where it happens. It really, really is. Now, did it feel like, oh, how hard was that? Eileen is just like talking to William like he's a real guy. William, is this not how it really happens in real life?
This is how it really happens. And Eileen, you know, one of the things I love about this scenario was she provided value. Every statement was providing value. What else could I do? Could I talk to other people? Could we do a webinar? Could we go and do an office visit? At some point, you might get a no, but think about how many yeses we stacked up before there was an opportunity to get a no.
This is I'm pulling from our pool of special sauce. This is what we talk about as micro engagement. I want a micro purchase. There wasn't any purchasing going on here, but there was trust being built. There was warmth being built. All right, it happened to be, not everybody has a William for a dad. All right, fine. But you're thinking.
That was lucky. I just met him, guys. Seriously. Didn't just meet William.
But yeah, it's why you go and you do a little bit of reading, look at LinkedIn, see what other papers and things somebody has published. Oh, gee, I read the PowerPoint that you gave at the advanced briefing for industry at Aberdeen Proving Ground last year. Oh, did you read that? Oh, nobody read that. How hard is that? People want to feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
We all do. We all do. So it's getting into the top of the hour. So pop your aha moment in the chat and you're eligible for our prize. And buy the book. We are also not only providing live training, simulations, Top Gun, but we also want to encourage you to buy your copy of Government Contracts Made Easier, second edition. It's on Amazon now on our special launch day, 50% off. This price goes up at midnight. But buy it while you can. Buy one for a friend. If you're having a great experience here, send the link out. We've got another hour to go, so put the link on social media. Tell people, oh my gracious, you got to come and see this webinar for the last hour. We've got an hour left. Share the link with friends. Share it out all day, and pay attention to the experience that you're having. William, is that a conversation with Eileen that you will always remember?
It will. It actually is. It lended itself to a phrase that I've always heard, that people do business with people they like, know, and trust. And that's really real. Now, in federal procurement, there is a large machinery to make sure that the like doesn't get out of hand, but it is still, we do business with people we like, know, and trust. And the result of that is being top of mind. So whenever you're top of mind is the opportunity. That's the goal, is that when there's a requirement, we don't wait until the requirement shows up to become top of mind. We have to be top of mind before the need presents itself.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, people, I want to, my quote of the hour, I think, comes from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. because every single interaction, especially these days, think about this with your federal buyers, is how do you make them feel? So with that, I want to thank both of you so much. You're welcome to keep hanging out for our next half hour. We are coming up on 2 minutes to our final hour of our live stream. I've never done a 3-hour live stream before. I hope I get the chance to do it again. People really knocked themselves out and came out and brought your A game. And I want to thank both of you for doing this together. And if you have been on this hour, you're seeing something that nobody gets to see, that I actually don't get to see. I have 2 of my client service team members. This is the kind of experience that you have when I work with companies. It's not a class, it's not a subscription, it's not a database. This is your team working with my team, having these kinds of intense experiences. In fact, that's the online learning where you hear more and more about it, especially the last few weeks. And what does it take to lock in great online learning? Part of what it takes, I'm going to pull something right off my shelf here. One of my favorite references, the power of moments. The moment, the intensity of the moment or experience that you have locks in that learning. Sometimes it's a personal emotional peak. Sometimes it's the moment of discovery that maybe you had here going, oh, how hard was this? It was just a conversation. What moment are you creating? What experience is your federal buyer having with you? And I leave that as a thought. All right, pop your aha in the chat and let's see who we've got for our winner for coming up to the top of the next hour. So Meg, I'm going to ask you who our winner
I am right
like.
here, and it just so happens that our winner for the 15-minute one-on-one call with Judy is Cynthia H. And it's so funny because when her name popped up, I immediately thought my mother's name is Cynthia, and so I was like, "Hey, I can have a conversation too." So Eileen,
I have 8 brothers and sisters, and so it's easy for me to connect someone with a name that I know. But William is incredibly special to me.
that's just so funny. But congratulations, Cynthia and Eileen and William. That was a fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. And I know, Judy, there were a couple of questions about being able to
Sure.
utilize that skit later. So maybe you want to take a look at that and possibly answer that, because some people were super excited about it.
All right, absolutely will. And so, and that this was just all improv. So there was nothing scripted about this. This just happened right when we were here. It just gives you a sense of the power and the and experience and savvy that my team has. It's really quite fun.
A natural golden nugget.
Can I just say something really quickly about that? If you take your knowledge that you know about the homework you've done about your client, and then you just wrap your personality around it because you're confident about the research you did, what's going on there, who the current primes are, and you're confident about what you do, like what William said, just being yourself with that because you're confident in your skin and you're not afraid of a no, because actually a no is going to save you a lot of time. You can move on to the next one, right? So by having the knowledge about your customer and the knowledge about what you do, then you just add your own personality. Hi, how you doing? This is what I do. That confidence alone will get you right into the business conversation. So it's not even scripted because you have the homework done. That's the key.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Oh my goodness. All right. If you have not yet bought your copy of Government Contracts Made Easier, you should do that. William, thank you again so much for your generosity. I love working with you. You're such a gift to be able to work with our clients. Connect with William on LinkedIn. Check out William's whiteboard. Eileen is the Federal Sales Sherpa, and she's also my training partner. We are so happy to work together, and I cannot begin to tell you how grateful I am for all the things that I learn every single time. We've worked with over 75 clients together, and the work is intense. I'm wiped out, and I've done it 75 times. I can't imagine how tough it is, but we are with you every step of the way when we're working on giving you those skills. If you're going, what would it take for me to be just as natural having that conversation? You can wander around and kind of bump into trying to work it out by trial and error and spend 12 months doing it, or we can work together. And that's the core of my profession. But right now we're sharing all the things that we can in the book, Government Contracts Made Easier. And so pick up your copy of the book. And we're coming up to the top of our 1 o'clock hour now. So I want to say thank you to William, to Eileen. You're welcome to hang out for a little while longer while I check my notes and get a sip of water here. And so hang on for just a second, and I'm going to take a look at my notes. And we are.
Thank you.
So Judy,
Go ahead.
While you're breaking, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Congratulations on the second edition of the book. Eileen, it's a pleasure to meet you. And thanks, Meg, for making all the magic happen behind the scenes. So I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity, and congratulations, and I hope to see you all soon.
Bye, William.
Thank you so much, William.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
So our guest for the next hour, we're going to be talking a little bit about competition. And as she logs on, our guest is going to be Emily Harmon, who's a former contracting officer and for Navy veteran and former chief of small programs, Office of Small Business Programs for the United States Navy. Emily and I met as she was a speaker. Hello, Emily. Your mic is still off. There we go. You're on. So Emily and I met when I invited her to be guest speaker at the National Veteran Small Business Coalition Boot Camp. And so, she was just, had a lot of balls in the air that we didn't all even know about. And so she was in her last year of being chief of small business programs for the United States Navy. And she was also madly becoming a podcast pro and banking her first interview. So Emily now runs Emily Harmon Consulting and is also the host of the Onward podcast, Authentic Conversations on Facing Adversity. Emily, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Judy. Happy to be here.
Hey, thanks. If you're on, welcome to our final hour of the live stream, Launching Government Contracts Made Easier. If you're just joining us now, let us know where you are here from or whatever your secret name of your office is. I will tell you that the world headquarters of Summit Insight is level 2 in we cohabit with the SOFA annex of the Congressional Research Service. I have a federal government employee working on one level below my office today. And so we'll probably have lunch together later on today. So there we go. Emily, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to be talking about competition, but tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a Naval Academy graduate, are you not?
Yes, I graduated with the 6th class of women back in 1985, a long time ago. Back then, women could go on 2 different kinds of ships, and there was just, that was about it. There was limited opportunity for us. Now women can serve on submarines, aircraft carriers, anywhere. So it's pretty cool. Yes.
It's amazing. What an amazing world.
Yeah.
You were involved in the Navy yourself. Were you at the Patuxent River Naval Air Station?
Well, I was. After I did 7 years active duty as a supply corps officer, and then I got into the contracting career field and ended up getting a job with NavAir right before they moved down from Crystal City to Patuxent River. So I worked at NavAir from, it was 1996 until 2005 as a contracting officer. And I bought supplies and services and major weapon systems. And then in 2005, I became the director of small business, and I stayed in that job for 9 years. And then I moved up to Washington, D.C. to take the Department of Navy job. So I've got a contracting and a small business background.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So you were working on some very large programs. Talk to us a little bit about when you were choosing among competitors. What kinds of things were you thinking about when you were evaluating multiple companies?
Yes, so especially when we bought services in support of the Navy and Marine Corps, like logistics services or even aircraft maintenance services, we would tend to have a lot of offers in response to our RFP. And so the main thing that we looked at, the way we set up that evaluation, is we made sure that we were complying with section L and M in the RFP. You can only evaluate the proposals based on what we say we're going to evaluate in section L and M. or, L is what the requirements that you need to put in your proposal, and M is how we're going to evaluate it. So we were very strict on that, and we would, have checklists and make sure that, when a technical person who is maybe doing a piece of the evaluation wrote up a deficiency or a weakness, we would go back to what the RFP requirement was to make sure that it wasn't just a deficiency that they felt was there, but we didn't ask to see about, you know what I'm saying? So we were really, there's a lot of checks and balances in how those RFPs are evaluated in source selection.
Mm-hmm. Now, especially with larger acquisitions, one of the questions that comes up a lot is how to choose what to bid and not to bid. And one of the things that we talk to our clients about in our community and vendors a lot is that often, very often, federal contracting officers or buyers are, by the time you put a requirement on the street, you've done market research, so you're already familiar with more than a few vendors who might be able to do the work. How often did you end up, in your experience, awarding a contract to somebody that you'd never heard of before?
I would say that didn't happen often, because somebody that you've never heard of before, maybe they hadn't heard of us before either. So they didn't respond in a very good way. But that, I'm not saying that wouldn't happen. And especially when people were saying that the government was doing LPTA, which is really a form of best
low price, technically acceptable.
Right. Yeah. There were times when companies that were unheard of had won. I wasn't involved in those source selections, but I can just say that the way source selections are done, there's really, in my mind, no way a company can win if they didn't bid in accordance with the RFP. Now, I know that there was a lot of concern back then about whether or not companies were, bidding too low. And I don't really want to get into that because I don't know. I just can tell you that there's, every situation is different, but, I know that there's a lot of checks and balances in how those companies are selected based on the requirements in the solicitation.
I hear you. So thinking about competition and competitive processes, what are some of the things that were important for you when you're involved in overseeing acquisition? If somebody is approaching you for the first time,
you mean a company like
first-time vendor, and a company who is a vendor who is new to you, what are some of the smaller interactions that you'd have that would start to build trust and make you feel comfortable with them, even before an acquisition was on the street?
Just like what you had said earlier in the earlier session, we were talking about the importance of picking up the phone and calling and introducing your company, not always trying to make a hard sell right away, but just getting to know the customer, doing your homework. You could tell the companies that stuck out, like the ones that were, especially in Pax River, and I'm sure this is the case at every base. They have, organizations that have industry days or events where they bring the people from the base out into the public to speak about certain things. Like in naval aviation, they typically have program manager come down, somebody from the Pentagon that's the requirements officer come down, and they talk. If you're attending those, you're clearly networking, doing your homework. You can see the ones who are really trying to get to know the customer versus the ones that are not. They're just looking to get rich quick, or get a contract quick, but they're not willing to put the work into it. So that's something that stuck out. And then companies that would just maybe follow up with the office, every 3 to 4 months, just checking on things or just giving an update on where their company is in certain situations, as well as companies like what Eileen pointed out last time in the session previous to this, where she called William, in a simulated call, but she said, I see that you have this procurement coming up and it was full and open before, and I think it could go women owned, so getting involved up front and early like that, not when the solicitation hits the street. It's really, really frustrating when a solicitation hits the street after you've done all of your market research on the government side and you have done an RFI, request for information, or sources sought, and you say, okay, we didn't find any smalls that could do the work. We're not going to set it aside. We're going to make this full and open. And then a company comes in and starts to complain or challenge that decision to go full and open, but they hadn't responded to the sources sought and stuff like that. That's really frustrating because we're ready to move on.
Right. Yeah. If you are finding that there are not opportunities that are set aside for a company like yours and you haven't responded to requests for information or sources sought, those pre-solicitation market research opportunities, that is like complaining about who got elected when you didn't bother to vote.
Yes.
You have to be involved in the full acquisition cycle. And
Yeah.
that actually acquisition cycle starts at a different place than a lot of people think it does. Lots
Right.
of people say, oh, well, Congress proposes and there's a budget and then an agency does a forecast and then there's a pre-solicitation, a solicitation, and a contract award. Actually, the acquisition cycle starts with looking at past data, understanding who buys what you do, how do they buy, how
Right.
much do they buy, who do they buy from, and that stuff is available for free online right now. So we're
Right.
talking about competition in this half hour. Please put your questions. Thank you, Dawn. We're going to get to yours. Put your questions in the chat. If you've got questions about competition process, competition research, ask me questions as well. I'm here to answer any question you've got about this right now. And if I can do some real-time digging for you, I will. So we have a question from John. Emily, how much weight does responding to RFIs and sources sought carry? How important is it to respond?
Okay, so we're not going to, let's say we do an RFI and a sources sought, and then we end up doing a competition. We're not going to go back and look in the competition and see, oh, this company never even responded to the sources sought, but they submitted a proposal, so they're going to get a lower ranking. You know, it doesn't come into play at all in the source selection. What comes to play in the source selection is comparing the companies against proposal against section L and M. Evaluating in accordance with them.
But if a company participates in RFIs and sources sought, that in itself ends up having an effect on how the ultimate requirement is drafted, does it not?
Yes, it does. And so I was recently on a panel in Tyson's where we were talking about like how you can influence the requirements. So for example, as sources sought is released, we're looking for companies that can do A, B, C, D. Let's say you can only do A and B, but you can team with somebody else that can do C and D. You should put that in your in your response because the government's looking to minimize risk. So just because you can do A and B, you want to show how you could also, if I teamed with this company, I could do C and D. But you also might say, hey, your requirement in, you know, the first paragraph is a little unrealistic. You know, you're asking for a turnaround time of 24 hours on whatever this product is or something. And the industry standard is a week. So there's absolutely no way that any company could do 24 hours. And if a bunch of companies come in and say that, then that helps shape the requirement. That helps tell the government that what they're asking for is unrealistic and that demand can't be met. So that's just an example. Or I had a call with somebody yesterday, they were talking about CMMI. So let's say the RFP.
CMMI, that's cyber maturity.
The cyber maturity.
Cyber maturity model certification, yeah.
Right. So so in DoD contracts now, you're going to have to meet a certain level of cyber maturity. Let's say the request for the RFI or the sources sought says you've got to be at cyber maturity level 4 in order to bid on this. Okay. If you don't think that that's really necessary, because what I've heard in a lot of cases is that a lower cyber maturity model would be required on most of our RFPs. If you think that that's unrealistic and not necessary for the procurement, that's the RFI sources sought phase is a time to ask those questions and comment. And even like in the draft solicitation or draft statement of work phase, that's a time to ask those questions too. And on any procurement, because sometimes what happens is, you know, contracting officers, program managers, they're understaffed, overworked. Sometimes they just take the last statement of work and make that the new RFP when things have changed. And so the last statement of work could be enhanced a little bit. So that's the time that you can get in there and influence.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it's very important to respond.
And if you're just joining us, we are involved in the launch live stream for Government Contracts Made Easier. We encourage you to pop your aha moment or your light bulb moment in the chat. Our topic for this half hour is competition and competitive research. And the link for purchasing your copy of Government Contracts Made Easier is in the chat. And we're going to be offering a prize at the bottom of the hour for among those who have an aha moment or a light bulb moment. You drop those in the chat. We've got a couple of questions coming up. One is about sole source. Now, suddenly everything changed within the last few days about sole source, but Emily, in general, there's a lot of pressure on contracting officers to show that they shopped, to compete things to the maximum extent practicable. Talk about what sole source means to a contracting officer, because vendors go, oh, can I have a sole source? Yeah, that's easy for you to say. Talk about sole source and what that means and how that works.
Sole source means that there's only one company that can meet the requirement. And I think that even after this, there's going to be some going back and looking, there's always audits after the fact and looking at, did the government get adequate competition even in this time when we should be getting it? So, sole source means there's only one company that can do the work. And sometimes there's other, if you look in the FAR, I think it's part 6.
6.3.
Yep, it talks about when you can go sole source. So there, I don't know off the top of my head to recite all of them.
Yeah, there are 8 specific conditions, and I'm not going to try to show off and recite them either. But does sole source not represent a certain amount of risk of getting it wrong for a contracting officer? What does that look like? What's the risk point? Because it looks easy from the vendor's point of view. What's tough about sole source from the buyer's point of view?
What's tough about it is just you've got to, you may not get the best price. Negotiating a good price when it's sole source is hard. There's always going to be people coming in and second guessing. So you've got to document the file that it truly is sole source. So you've got to show that you've proven that it's sole source, that you've done your market research for it to be sole source. I don't know if I'm getting to what you're looking for, but
yes, you are. I think that's, and right now there's going to be a whole extra surge of buying on the one hand. On the other hand, contracting officers, buyers already have this weight of got to get it right and lots of public scrutiny. Months from now, auditors and Tiger teams will be combing through those records going, did you do it right?
Right.
And so if people seem anxious or on edge or seem to be taking longer, or they're issuing really restrictive guidelines that don't seem to line up with the circular you read last week, they're also trying to get it right.
Yeah, they're spending taxpayers' money. And look, this is a lot of money they're spending. So.
Exactly right. It's important. So we're talking about competition. If you have questions about competition, please drop it in the chat. We have another question here. Sean says, I'm new to government contracts. I had a particular RFI I'd been looking into. I'm grateful this last segment was discussed. Sean, we're so glad you're with us. Yes, indeed. John has a question. Emily, do you think the current telecommuting situation is going to limit contact with small business offices? We've had certain issues staying in touch with certain federal workers. Emily, what do you think is happening, and what advice do you have for people who want to stay in touch with or make contact with folks who suddenly their professional lives and contact just got turned upside down? What advice do you have for people?
Well, just like you said, Judy, earlier in another segment, just understand that people are working with kids at home. They're working with maybe another spouse that's in the medical field, or, who knows? I mean, they're all humans that are doing the work. However, that being said, when I was with the Navy, when you telework, you forward your work phone to your cell phone. You have a work cell phone typically, or you can forward it to your home phone. So it should ideally be transparent that they're even teleworking. Just because their butt is not in the seat in the office, their butt is in the seat at home, and they're working, they're on government time. So shouldn't be a problem reaching contracting officers and small business professionals, and they should be on their email as well.
Sure. And it's important also to stay in the group, to be focused and persistent. Gee, I called, they didn't return my call. Yeah, one
I
call.
can't tell you how many
Really?
times I got calls or like emails, and I would get a couple hundred emails a day, you know, and it got buried. And so what I would try to do is when I was going on my plane trips, I would, you know, be on my computer going through all the emails, kind of sorting to try to catch ones that I had missed. I think it's important to follow up, and don't assume that they're just ignoring you. Assume that they are swamped, and make a polite follow-up call or email. Yeah. And,
Yeah,
and
it's funny. Go
another
ahead.
key is in your email, sometimes, at least with the Navy, we had an intranet. So sometimes email went to junk and we didn't even see it. And so we might miss it that way. And also make sure your subject line is clear as to what you're calling or emailing about, what you're trying to find them. Don't make it just some generic, you know, email, but make it specific as to what the
So
challenge.
for example, to cite a particular acquisition number or solicitation number, the more specific it is, the it stands out a little bit more.
And don't do this. Like I'd get emails where everybody else in my office and all Navy small business professionals were on the email too. It was to all of us. And and that's ridiculous. It was to all of us, and we don't know who's taking action, who's not. It just takes up a lot of people's time. Don't just spam us.
Right.
I mean, when I was there, I would say, don't spam us. Yeah.
Right. We got a couple of questions. If you've got questions, put them in the chat. We're coming to the bottom of the hour on competition, and as well drop your aha moment or your big light bulb moment, your big revelation from this half hour in the chat. If you do, you're eligible for one of our prizes and our grand prize. We have two more questions for you, Emily. One is from Elise, who says, if a bid is set aside for woman-owned small business and only one woman-owned small business responds and no one else responds, can they award to that woman-owned small business?
Yes, they can.
Because in order to set aside, they had to think that there was enough competitors to do it.
They wouldn't have set it aside for women-owned if they didn't think that there was enough women-owned. They can. They may say that, I mean, it's up to the contracting officer. They could decide to go back out and recompete.
Right. So the variation, this is interesting. What if only one woman-owned small business responds and for whatever reason, another non-woman-owned small business responds with a better offer? Would it be awarded to the WOSB if they are responsive, or would it go to the non-WOSB?
It would not go to the non, because it wasn't a non-women-owned small business set aside.
Yeah.
But the government, you know, I think that's a question that I think it just depends on the contracting office and that organization. I can't.
I suppose they could withdraw it and recompete it, but they would, if they wanted to, like, who has time for that? But
right,
they could, if I suppose if it was set aside for woman-owned small business, then that's who it's limited to.
Right.
Somebody threw it in the pile and went, I got something really good. If it was that good, you'd have to have a really good reason to withdraw it and recompete it.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah, but I don't have a warrant. You have had a warrant. I've never had a warrant and never will. So we have another question from Dawn. Here we go. Oh, we are in the weeds. I'm loving this. If an RFI for request for information is listed on GSA eBuy, would I have to be on GSA schedule to respond to the RFI? Or could I send an interest email to the CO regarding my company capabilities?
I don't know the question to that. I would send the interest email. But if it's on GSA eBuy, they're planning to go GSA, and it takes a while, from what I understand, to get a GSA contract. So they're not going to wait for you to go get everything on GSA. What would you say, Judy?
Yeah, you got a couple of layers there. And so GSA has now just made life slightly interesting and opened up, given view access to the world, to some of the eBuy stuff. So if its RFI is listed, and you're seeing it, yeah, you're right. If it's on eBuy, it's for GSA schedule holders. On the other hand, and I love this, Dawn, you get a big star. The most valuable information when you see a solicitation come by and you don't know the buyer and you don't know the budget, you don't know the incumbent, you don't know the history, the most valuable thing you can do is to peel out the contact information and get to know them. So your other question, gee, can I send an interest email to the CEO regarding your capabilities? Absolutely. You want to do that. It's not just, can I send a thing, but how can I get to know them?
Yeah.
Who are they?
Because, you know, when you send that, they may not get enough information. They may not get a good response because it's an RFI. It's not an RFP or anything on eBay. eBuy, so they're looking to see who's out there. They may not get enough companies that are out there that want to bid, so they may decide to not buy it through GSA.
Mm-hmm.
So by knowing about your company, that would help in that decision. They're still kind of doing their market research.
Build relationships everywhere, always. And if you're going, yeah, but everybody in the government needs what I do, I don't have time for that, really. If you don't have time to learn about them, they sure as heck do not have time to learn about you.
Yeah.
And so go deep, go narrow, go deep.
And I would say make sure your SAM registration is up to date. The web links work. The keywords are accurate in there. That you've used all the space that you're allowed, because that's where contracting officers will go and small business professionals go first to kind of do some of their market research. You know, I think that the government could eliminate or could significantly reduce a lot of the RFIs and sources sought, which are very time consuming, if they could find those small businesses when they did their initial market research in the SBA's dynamic small business search.
Yeah, exactly. And I started out my first segment by inviting one of my competimates, Josh Frank, to talk and to share expertise. I want to encourage you to be brave. Have a small number of links or information or profiles of your competitors, especially competitors in your small business set-aside category. Be brave. Tell people about your competitors. Is competing in a smaller pool easier than competing in a big one? Yeah. So there's the rule of two is all real nice. A rule of two does not give anybody a whole lot of warm fuzzy about, gee, there are two of these, therefore I have to set it aside. Having not two, but 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 nice, big, juicy, competitive pools. Is that better, Emily?
Yes, much better.
Yeah. Bring your friends. You're not going to win every time anyway. Be generous. Opportunity is like dough. Don't treat it like pie. Add warmth. There's more for everybody. You're not going to win all the time anyway. People are always going to remember who brought them the lead. They're going to bring you things too. What would happen if you approached your federal arena with generosity? That's game changing.
I agree.
Bring your human game.
Yeah.
And so we're coming to the bottom of the hour. And so we are offering a prize for someone who's sharing your aha moment, your big revelation from our half hour. And of course, did you buy the book? Tell us about the book, Government Contracts Made Easier. And we are just coming up on the bottom of our half hour. So of all the things you're hearing about competition, of RFIs, of responses, what's your one takeaway? Drop your takeaway in the chat and you are eligible for winning our prize at the bottom of the half hour and our grand prize. Our prize master, Meg, is going to tell us what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so we do have our next giveaway winner that I'm going to put in the chat, and I am this one because apparently there's a book coming to a bat cave near Sean.
Hooray! Yay,
So Sean had asked for, it's funny because he was like, I would love to have this. And then when we did the random giveaway and his number came up and I was like, you've got to be kidding. So Sean,
bat cave, baby.
Coming to a bat cave near you. Thank you, Emily, for also buying the book. Make sure that if you did buy the book on Amazon, just send me a screenshot of your little purchase order. No numbers necessary. Just need to know that you actually bought it. Email that over to me, and we're going to enter you into the grand prize giveaway that we are going to pull at the top of the hour. So very soon, very soon. Sean, I will message you and get your address so that we can get that book over to you.
And again, Emily is also the host of the Onward podcast. In any time, inspiration from people who have overcome obstacles and difficulties in their lives, it always gives us a lift. I love the Onward podcast. Check out the Onward podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Leave a note. Let Emily know what you think. She does incredible work, and she was hatching this in her final year, doing sort of nights and weekends studying on how to be a podcast master, and the work is paying off now. I love the stories in the podcast. And when we go back to a new normal, Emily is also hosting, and I can hardly wait, she is hosting a retreat as well. So I think that the value of a retreat to reset our thinking and our lives and our hearts will be even greater. And so connect with Emily, and she, who knows how it will come up. We may all figure out how to hold virtual retreats between now and then, but life will carry on. We will evolve. We are all here for each other. So Emily, thank you for bringing your guests, your warmth, and your wisdom to us today on our book launch.
You're welcome. Thank you, Judy.
Take care.
All right. Great job. Keep up the good work.
Thanks. You too. So, and we are in our last half hour of our live stream on Government Contracts Made Easier. I want to give a shout out to Meg Kearns, who's my social media lead and has been keeping prizes flowing and keeping me up to date on questions. And we're so glad you are here. In our last half hour, we're going to be talking about sales and marketing, which is the other side of relationships. And we've got two really special guests. Two of my wonderful friends are on. We have, let me think here, yet another federal government buyer is going to be joining us at is coming online at the bottom of the hour. And another one of my special team coaches is also going to be coming on. We're talking about relationships. And so we're talking about sales and marketing. And so if you are joining us, please pop. We're going to be doing, again, we're doing active chat. And so let us know your questions and challenges about sales and marketing. And there are two guests that we're looking forward to having on. We've got Chris Brinker joining us right now, and we should also have Dr. Brian J. Glass from NASA Ames Research Center. We got some special stories to share right now. And so, Chris, are you with us?
I am, right on cue.
Hey there, how are you?
Hey, how are you? Good.
Chris is one of the principals with Ocean 5 Strategies. And Chris and I met through, and I'm going to go get the Ocean 5 Strategies. There we go. Ocean 5 Strategies are experts in marketing communications and driving huge ROI with your online presence. I met Chris through one of my most longstanding friends in the federal market, Mark Amtower. If you are not on LinkedIn, I will tell you, and here it's, well, by the way, you drop in the chat or keep track. If you have a nugget or a light bulb moment or an aha moment, something you learn that's of real value, keep track. We're going to ask you to drop that in the chat at the end of the hour, and you will be eligible for one of our prizes of the half hour. And we're going to be having an action-packed half hour here. Again, if you haven't yet picked up your book, Government Contracts Made Easier, pick up your book. Share the link, share it on social, tell people the cool things you're learning, what you liked out of this webinar, spread the word. The book is going to be on sale through the end of the day, around 10 o'clock at night. And where else are you going to get this much great stuff for less than 13 bucks? Grab your book, share the link, invite your friends. In the meantime, we have a real rocket scientist, Mars planetary geologist is joining us. Jay Glass is joining us from California as his video comes back up. We are all working from our mysterious home locations. And as we're waiting for video to come up, I'll just ask, Jay, do we have you on audio? Because we're not getting you video.
You do have me on audio, and I'm not sure where the video is coming from.
Okay, cool. So very good. Chris at Ocean 5 Strategies are one of our program partners, and Chris helps folks have websites and online communications that reach their federal buyers. And that's right, it was coming up on one of our nuggets of the day. Put in the chat, how many government employees, federal government employees, do you think are on LinkedIn? How many? This is a quiz question, all right? How many federal employees do you think are on LinkedIn right now? Have IDs on LinkedIn?
Oh, let's see. There's probably something on the order.
You're not allowed to go guess, right? You're not allowed to look it up right now, Jay. All right.
I'm not looking anything up. You can't see it, but my hands are not on the keyboard. I'm just saying. I would say something on the order of 7 or 8 million.
Interesting. Your number is actually bigger by a surprising order of magnitude. Most people guess a lot smaller than that. Let's see somebody else in the chat. How many federal employees do you think are on LinkedIn? Guesses. Other guesses. Okay, let's see messages now in the chat in a second here. 100,000, 100,001, 30%. Oh, that's very clever. An actual number. Anybody else? Aha. And our winner is of just the quiz question is Gino. 2.1 million, 2.1 million government employees are on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you better believe that your buyers are. So there we go. We have then a wonderful pairing of guests today. So Dr. Jay Glass is with NASA Ames Research Center. Jay, tell people what you do.
Well, my elevator speech is something along the lines of, I poke holes in other planets, but really my research group develops drills and excavation, sort of deployable automation, we call it. Things that don't necessarily rove around on the surface, although they can be mounted on rovers or deposited by rovers. But we try to come up with ways to operating on 50 watts of power, drill down to a meter on some other planetary body's surface and bring sample back up so that we can do analysis of various kinds with it. So, look for signs of past life if you're going to Mars, or looking for the mineral or, clues to past climate history on that body or lunar ices, that kind of thing. So we do that with, we take, AI technology, we take mechanical engineering, we do IT, we combine a lot of these and write a lot of our own code and take these integrated systems to remote parts, we call them analog sites on Earth. Things like the Atacama Desert in Chile, the dry valleys of Antarctica, Houghton Crater up in the Canadian Arctic, a big impact crater at about 75 degrees north. Places that are very barren or have subsurface ice or in some ways look like or resemble incompletely some other planetary body that we are trying to study or test. So we will go to these really remote places and run tests to try to break our stuff creatively. And sometimes when we do, things do break, or we discover that in this new prototype, that this particular encoder, let's say, that was an example from 2 years ago. We had a new JPL developed extractor. Basically, if you think of it, it's sort of a Mr. Coffee for dirt. If once you brought the material up, brought the sample down from a meter or so below the surface, we were in the Atacama Desert in Chile at that point, takes the dirt, throws it into a little, sort of about the size of a Keurig packet, and then puts it under pressurized water extraction. And then it has a little encoder which tells you whether the little Keurig packet is lined up to get the dirt put inside of it. They discovered that one of the JPL folks there, they'd gotten the extraction part to work great, but their encoder wasn't working so hot. And in fact, not only was it fried, but then the spare they had was also fried. So we have 20 people out in the middle of the desert with all this equipment, and we are sort of in a, okay, where do I find a compatible encoder? And get one to Chile in the desert in 2 or 3 days through customs. So that's an interesting sort of a procurement issue in that sense. It certainly goes to how quickly can you find something. And here you see shoes. This is from our camp. In fact, several images.
I'm just looking here because I'm looking for another picture of the rover. I had you invited me to go to the Atacama Desert and meet the scientists, and I went 2 years ago. So I actually we were in a funny place where because I was heading out anyway, it was actually easier for me to bring an extra chunk of cable with me to Chile. So I got to bring Mars rover parts to Chile. It was so cool.
Yeah. Well, since you conveniently were coming out there to document some of this and to take some of these great photos, which I'm grateful for, by the way, especially like this one. This is a beautiful one there that you're showing. I was going to take advantage of, I went and scoured, and my colleagues at JPL in Southern California, likewise, they found a spare in their lab. we ordered from 3 different suppliers, one of which I managed to get delivered to your place in near Washington, D.C., so that you could then hand carry that under your arm as a football to try to carry it past Chilean customs and get it into the country.
We cleared cut. We did all the right things, but at least I happened to be going. So it was a
Right.
cool
That
thing.
was fortuitous. But at the same time, I couldn't rely on just that one sort of supply path. It's, much of this with logistics is all about the shipping. One of the reasons that Amazon is so dominant isn't because they necessarily sell anything that's better than anybody. They're selling the same stuff. It's their logistics and distribution. If I go to there, I can search their database quickly and find sometimes multiple vendors that are selling the same thing that all can be serviced through the same means. So I can do my own comparison shopping, my own, as I'm required to by federal regulations. If I can look between 3 or 4 different purveyors, even within the Amazon universe of, an encoder, find who has 2 different versions of the encoder, go buy a copy based on who can deliver it and ship it. And this is where the logistics, who has overnight international shipping enabled from their own sub-site through that context, and who doesn't. If an encoder that's going to take me 2 weeks to get there because the only options they have are UPS and US Postal Service, I look at that saying, doesn't do me any good. I'm in Chile. I'm burning $15,000 a day just in travel costs to have this team here, not to mention the opportunity cost. I can't sit around and wait for something that's going to take. We'll be gone by the time this will get here. So on to the next supplier. So it's really about the logistics and being able to quickly trade who's got what available and how quickly can they get it. It's not just trading the widget because, in at least as far as pieces of hardware goes, if I'm looking for an encoder or a motor or a filter or a pump or something like that, or if I'm looking for a motherboard of a particular type for a particular instrument, there may be 6 vendors that all have either this in stock or make it or sell it or things that are compatible to it. But how do I find the one? And if I'm in a time-pressed situation and I've got a crew standing by, it's going to be who can get it to me. Even if I have to pay 20% more, I will do that because the government as a whole is better served by not having those 20 people standing around on their footsies for a week waiting for it to show up. So I'm going to spend 20% more and maybe $15 more on the encoder in order to get it there, and maybe an extra $50 in shipping so I can save $100,000 in travel costs.
Right. So talk a little bit about, so you're running a program, you're dealing with 20 or 30 scientists for NASA, about how much sort of non-salary budget authority is up. You're maybe doing 2 or 3 different field excursions a year. About how much contracting are you doing in a year?
Okay, well, just my own little corner of the universe here. Now you can see this is from the picture you've got is from one of the Chile camps, showing a bunch of our equipment coming off of shipping. It's already palletized and shown crap. But my last year, let's see, my total budget authority was, average size, small research group, I guess, about $1.5 million US.
Okay.
And of that, maybe $300K went to actual salaries locally in my group or close by.
Right. So about $700,000 of actual of buying of stuff. About how often would you just, when you needed products or services, especially products, you'd go and just Google it? What percentage of the time would you just go and look for suppliers on the internet?
I would say 3/4 of the time.
3/4 of the time. So what are the
I
top
used to look
3?
at catalogs. I mean, I used to have stacks of catalogs. Yeah. If I go back to when I was running projects and putting things together, let's say in the early 2000s or late 90s even, I would have stacks and say GSA schedules and just, something that if you put them all on end would probably be 3 feet high, meter high, off in one corner that I would go riffling through if I needed something. And then I would go and attempt to get something. That's all by the wayside. Those have all gone to the recycling bin.
I want to pop over to, ask you one more question, then pop over to Chris and say, when you land on a website now, what are the 3 things? You're looking at vendors, you've never been there before, you enter a search word, it's a thing. You get a bunch of things. what are the top things you're going to look for that are going to turn you on or turn you off, that you really got to find in a big fat hurry when you get to their website? If it's not there, you're out of there. What are you looking for?
Okay, I'm going to look for keywords that describe the service or the mechanism or the end product. I will already have 3 or 4 keywords. I'm going to look for some means to do a search, to type in those keywords, and that it will bring me to. I don't have, especially in a contingency situation, I don't have time to go and sit and painstakingly go level by level. Here, I'm going to look at subcategory of this. Now I'm going to look at your selection of subcategory of that. I have to go 12 steps down to finally find the one encoder I'm looking for. I'm never going to get there. I'm going to say, this is taking too long. They probably don't have it anyway. Yep. Screw this. I'm just going to go off and look for the next vendor site.
So keywords are really critical, correct? So it's keywords for sure.
Keywords for sure. Pictures, yep. Most of the time I don't care about pictures until I find whatever it is I'm looking for. Then I want to be able to look at it, but I don't want pictures that have 256 tiny button prints of different motors that I can't even make out in the distance are useless.
Got it. So Chris, talk to us a little bit about the experience that you have when you're trying to, what do you think that federal buyers are telling you that they absolutely need to see? What guidance do you have for vendors when they're trying to put together their sites?
The kind of the interesting and disturbing fact that we keep running into is when we actually talk to the federal decision makers, we get, here's what we need. And then we talk to the actual government contracting companies, and their opinion of what the federal decision makers need are like opposite. So there's a huge disconnect between what I think that a lot of government contractor companies along the way have, come to think is like, oh, well, this is what they want. But if you actually talk to them, it's not. So what we're basically hearing, and to reflect what Jay said, it's, make sure that your information is clear, it's concise, it's obvious. Don't make them go digging around or navigate through, complicated navigation structures. Another thing we're finding that is really necessary now, I think if you look at like the big 5, it's please make sure that your website does have responsive design, which means that it adjusts for mobile devices. As I go through and I'm kind of evaluating, we do website assessments. It's amazing how many websites are still not responsive. The government decision makers are using mobile, and if they're actually using Google search, Google may or may not show your website at all if your design is not responsive. And we have lots of articles on why that is, and gasp, is this real? Really super clear messaging, the keywords, what is it we do, who is it we do it for, and how are we a value to you? Just, upfront, critical. And then depending on what stage the decision makers are at, also having educational content, because when people are in research mode, they're not ready. They're not coming to your website to make a decision yet. They're trying to look for an answer to the solution, and they're, maybe looking for the potential vendors that could help them. So having educational content, and then engagement tools, clear calls to action so that people know what you want them to do when they get to your website, and then search engine optimization, making sure that the website at least is SEO friendly if you're not engaging in an actual SEO program.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And these are things that that you go through with our clients when we're, as part of our programs, when we're saying, gee, what are the ways that we can be leveraging, what could be putting out there to help have buyers connect with vendors. And so, Jay, when you're thinking about the things that you find really attractive and engaging, you land on somebody's site and you go, oh yeah, oh, I'm going to spend time here and get to know them, what are the things that stand out for you as a government buyer? You're just finding a new supplier, you need something and you're going, oh yeah. What resonates for you?
Well, on the government buying side, if it's a small purchase, typical purchase card kinds of things, then it's really about does it deliver when I expect it to? I don't expect a personal touch for a $50 widget. Mm-hmm. It's more about the promptness and the quality in that case. For services, especially if I'm working with, let's say, instead of the small purchase realm, I'm dealing with a $100,000 support contract for drill maintenance or something like that, or something that's actually providing engineering support to my research group. Then what I really value is, just like with any kind of project management situation, keeping me posted if the hitches develop. It's the communication channel, and it's also being willing to tell me things I don't want to hear. I really value that someone will come to me and say, this is a problem, or our team is really overworking and we're worried that if we don't, that this deadline, that this target that you set is really maybe too ambitious and we didn't realize at the time. And can we work, how hard and fast is this? I would much rather have them come to me and feel comfortable in coming to me in that case. So it's really this, what's the level of transparency and trust? I realize that coming from the government side to a contracting side, there are constraints in terms of, I can't tell them how to do it necessarily sometimes. I can't do anything that looks like personal services and so forth and so on. But still, if we have a common goal, if there are task requirements or deliverables or milestones, and something's starting to get out of sync with that, I value them coming to me and saying, we're starting to get out of sync with that. Because then sometimes it may be due to some unthought of, tertiary would be nice to have on my part that I could easily relax and I can still get the government or my project's primary objectives accomplished in a timely and cost-effective fashion. But if they don't tell me that, and then suddenly we get to, it's a week before this major milestone or deliverable of some sort at that level, and then it's like, oops, we're not going to make it, and we're actually going to have to take a 50% slip for whatever reasons. It's like, wow, I am blindsided. Now I'm blindsided in front of the people above me in the agency and who I am accountable to in Washington for my budget, and then that puts me in a difficult position, and that makes me less likely to trust or work with that supplier again.
Got it. So I want to back over to Chris. And Chris, you talk to dozens of federal contractors year in, year out. What are the three big things that people don't understand about how important their websites are when they want to communicate with federal buyers? What are the three big gaps in understanding that people really need to understand better?
I think the number one largest one is there is this misconception that unless you are running an e-commerce website and literally selling things from your website, that you don't get business from your website. And I think that would probably be the number one biggest misconception. And the value of your website is, websites are not just the online brochures that they were a decade ago. I mean, we have tools to be able to measure, to capture, to lead people through your website the way that you would like them to be led, to offer information that's highly personalized. We look at a website as like the number one sales and marketing tool, and created properly and optimized. I mean, this is like your 24/7 salesperson that's there, especially now with, you don't know where people are necessarily working from, or what time. So your website is there no matter what.
People are going to check you out 12 times online before they even talk to you. Yeah. If contracting officers have said the content of your website is not aligned with the content of your profile on SAM, they're going, how you do anything is how you do everything. They're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So it really matters.
I think one of the biggest advantages of your website, out of every platform that is out there, whether you're utilizing LinkedIn or other social media avenues, whether, you know, wherever you have your information posted, you do not control those platforms. You control your website. So kind of the goal that we look at is, no matter how you're communicating to people, you know, if you're pushing information, and you should be pushing information out on LinkedIn to be seen as a subject matter expert, to develop relationships. But what you want to do is bring those people to your website, because that is a platform you control. You can actually have them see what it is you want them. If your website is designed, and again, it should be with flexibility in mind, you may want to change the content on your homepage to specifically change the words and the content and the keywords to a specific contract that you're going after at
And
that
you
point in time.
you can create really engaging content. A website doesn't have to be static. What do you want people to engage in? What do you want them to do? What can they what? And so you want them to learn things. There's all kinds of ways that they can get to know who you are. So your website is one of those other micro engagement touch points. What kind of an experience can somebody have? Does your website? Wow, it doesn't have to be technologically complicated. It's got to be engaging. And that's one of Chris's expertise. Ocean 5 Strategies is also perfectly happy to go and give you an assessment, a complimentary assessment of your website. Chris spends time with our clients. And so you can see the link for Ocean 5 Strategies there, and Meg will pop it in the chat. In the meantime, we're coming to the top of our final of our 3 hours. We have a super prize for this last half hour. I talked to Jay, and I have bought the last available t-shirt from the NASA year, the 2018 Year in the Desert in Atacama. I have one of these, he has one, and we have one for you. So you can have a t-shirt just like us. Long sleeves, lovely tan t-shirt. This is real desert wear. And so this is our prize. So put your aha moment in the chat if you want to be eligible to have your very own NASA ARADS rover t-shirt. So who says, you know, do we not have more fun on our webinars than you have anywhere in federal contracting? I defy you to find a webinar that is this much fun. So there. Thank you so much for an extraordinary experience in Chile and for sharing your perspective as a NASA buyer. We're so glad you're able to join us.
Well, thank you. It has been a pleasure. And since I am at this point, we are in level 4 within NASA, and that means we're all in mandatory telework. So I'm happy to have joined you from my dining room.
We're all doing the best we can. That is for sure. This is absolutely great. You can find out more as well about, is there a part while I'm here? Because we're just wrapping up. I'm going to flip over to Ames Research Center. Where would I search on the Ames site if I wanted to see more about your program?
Well, you can just look up, if you look for ARADS, ARADS.
Yeah.
Or astrobiology in general, you see a number of different press releases.
This is my favorite picture.
Yes.
I just love this. Talk about this for a second.
Okay. This is this is from 2017. This is our rover with the drill mounted, but this is in the Atacama Desert in Chile. It's a very, very good seeing place in the Southern Hemisphere. There are world famous observatories just 50 kilometers away, and you're at the foot of the Andes. This was a long duration showing the Milky Way in the background there very clearly. You can even see the Magellanic Clouds, actually, not in this picture very readily, but you can see certainly nebulae and other things that are visible. And what looks like sunrise, sunset over on the far left is actually the moon. So it's if you have a long enough exposure, it actually moonrise and moonset looks a lot like sunrise and sunset. So, and you see the little status lights are very blazing on the rover, but this sort of evokes a lot about exploration and where we are and where we're going. So yes, it's one of my favorites too.
How wonderful. So you can find out more about Jay's project and the rover that his team is building to join the collection of explorers getting ready for what comes next on Mars. How cool is that?
Right.
It's a wonderful project. And so you can go over to NASA Ames and you can Google ARADS, ARADS. I can pop the link. Can you pop the link in the chat? You can find out more about it. So we can do that too.
Well, again, there are lots of links you can find there as you pulled up, and if anyone wants to contact me, I believe somebody, Meg, posted my LinkedIn handle earlier on. So if anyone wants to, there's another picture driving up a hill. I'm happy to answer questions or fill in anything, especially also within the usual constraints around how we deal with procurements and things, and in the more general sense germane to the thread here.
Thank you so much. Wow. Chris, any last words about online marketing, websites, the last thoughts that people should really keep in mind?
Yeah, actually, we've been receiving a lot of questions with the quote new normal, which has inspired us to start writing some articles, which we are adding to as we get more questions. We have a ton of resources on the website. Everybody's welcome to them. There's some good downloadable resources. Everybody can kind of do their research in their own time as questions come up. As questions come up or discoveries or experiences, I welcome input. We're trying to kind of, stay on the pulse of everything that's going on and try to be, a resource for information. So we're going to be pushing out additional articles, which we're happy to incorporate information.
Let me know. We'll include those as well on our FAQ page, because we're creating an FAQ page for a pandemic response. With that, wow, we're just a couple minutes over. Thanks for hanging with us. Wow, we still have several dozen people who are with us on this call. Meg, who is our final winner of our NASA t-shirt?
We have a final winner of Elise gets our t-shirts. So congratulations. We'll make sure you get your address over to us, and we'll make sure that you get that so you can, pair it with your favorite pants for staying home and however you want to wear that.
And we would love to get to, so you have a couple dozen folks, you have been with us for the whole time, and not all of you are my relatives. I'm so glad that you're here. So of this 3 hours that you spent with us, what's your big takeaway from this experience in being here? I'd love to know. We have had wonderful, generous people sharing their stuff. What did you like best about this time? And then we'll sign off. Tell me what you liked best. What you got most out of.
I know there were a couple people who are also hoping to either get the replay or whatnot, because they did have kiddos at home. But we are super duper happy that you all were able to join us, and thankful for those who were here, as well as those who already purchased the book. And we're looking forward to getting your thoughts on that after you get it in your hands or on your Kindle device.
Yes, all of those things. So just a big shout out to those of you who are here. And so Amber, Carlos, Dawn, Elise, Matt, Nanette, Sean, Susan, Thetis, you've been here for the whole time. Thank you so much. Chris, you've been here for the whole time. Elise, Diane, Pulin, thank you so much for being part of our community, Amber. And we sure hope that we'll be in touch later. Share the links, let other folks know. And thank you for being part of an extraordinary experience. We have come a long way from launching the first edition, because the first time we did this, my husband brought a box of books back from a private printer in York, Pennsylvania, and I had 5 people there with cake in my in my dining room. So we're doing a national launch, and life couldn't be more different now. But thank you so much for joining us. Meg, thank you so much. And if you want to know more about our company, get in touch with me, book a chat. I'd love to do that. I'm going to sign off. Wish you all the very, very best. Keep in touch. I wish you good selling, and I would love to chat with you anytime. Meg, thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and a big thank you to the whole Summit Insight team as well. And we'll all be in touch over the days and weeks ahead. So thank you.
Congratulations, Judy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yes, congratulations and thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Jay.